Man, it's a slow news day. Andrew Gillum is not really in the news all that much, but he was indicted on 21 felony corruption charges. Kind of crazy story because he was like 0.4% away from being the governor of Florida, and then we would not have Ron DeSantis. So crazy story. We'll talk a little bit about that. We got a story that's got everybody a little bit pissed off is that 14 Republicans, 4 of them out of the blue, have signed on to red flag law, gun control BS. And now Steve Scalise is basically going around being like, do not vote on this when it goes to the floor or whatever. And I can't say I'm surprised. The Republicans, in my opinion, are fairly garbage. But we'll talk about that. And we also got Ron DeSantis in many statewide polls actually leading Trump. And on Predict It, Ron DeSantis is beating Trump to be the candidate in 2024. And I think the issue is quite simple. Ron DeSantis is in politics now, actively engaging in the culture war. So his star is rising. Donald Trump is not. He's having rallies, but he's just either stagnant or just, there. Ron DeSantis has 2 years of growth ahead of him. So I think it's a fairly good bet. We'll talk about this and we'll talk about fake news and other issues around that satire because we are being joined by the CEO of the Babylon Bee, Seth Dillon.
That's me.
I'm sorry.
Introduce yourself.
That's my cue there.
Seth Dillon,
my bad.
CEO of the Babylon Bee. Fake news you can trust. Yeah.
Fake news you can trust.
So
what's the Babylon Bee for those that might not know?
For those that might not know, we're like where they call us on our Wikipedia page, the conservative version of the Onion, I guess. It's kind of how we were known initially in the media. We exaggerate the truth with fake stories that often come true because reality is catching up to satire.
Yeah.
It's about as fast as we can write it.
And then what do you do when, your satire comes true? Do you have to go back and then delete it because it's real news now?
We mark it down as a fulfilled prophecy. We're
yeah.
tracking them in a spreadsheet now. I posted a Google Doc recently. I've got like 67 or 70 of these things. Jokes that came true.
Well, we'll talk about all that.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. We also got Seamus.
Seamus Coughlin of Freedom Tunes here. I am interested in having a conversation about DeSantis and Trump. That's always a fun one. I have a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes. We just launched a website, freedomtunes.com. You guys go over there for $5 a month. You'll become a member, get an extra cartoon every week. We got a bunch of cartoons up there now. You'll also help us get independent from big tech. Go over there, check it out. I love you.
I was trying to remember, regards to Babylon, who was the guy with all the prophecies? But was he a Babylonian guy? It wasn't Nebuchadnezzar, I don't think. Was it?
Well, there were a number of prophets in the Old Testament, but Babylon is a reference to like the exile. So you had like the Hebrew people in exile, and like Babylon Bee is like a play on that, saying that like we're like conservative Christians today are like doing dispatches from exile. So
well, let's talk more about that tonight. Maybe if it comes up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm over here missing my cues in the corner because I'm distracted. I'm very sorry. You have my full attention now. Seth is fantastic. He's very funny. I'm really excited for this evening's conversation.
Before we get started, my friends, head over to eatrightandfeelwell.com and pick up your C8 MCT oil powder from BioTrust, their Keto Elevate. So full disclosure, since like November, I dropped like 30 pounds, and it's because I cut out the sugars. I've been increasing the fats and basically just fresh veggies, protein, high fat. I love putting this stuff in my coffee in particular, as well as a bunch of heavy cream. Head over to eatrightandfeelwell.com. You'll get a 60-day money-back guarantee. Keto Elevate provides your body only C8, the most ketogenic MCT. That means it provides support for energy levels, healthy appetite management, mental clarity and focus, athletic performance. 5 grams of the highly sought-after MCT C8 per scoop. Keto Elevate is my favorite MCT powder on the market. I love that they write that down like I'm supposed to say it, but it is true. Yeah. Someone actually did bring in like other MCT stuff, and I thought it was actually kind of bad. And I was just like, no, we just need more of this stuff because the keto stuff, the BioTrust stuff actually is pretty good. It actually is my favorite. You'll get free shipping on every order. For every order today, BioTrust donates a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor through their partnership with NoKidHungry.org. To date, BioTrust has provided over 5 million meals to hungry kids. Please help BioTrust hit their goal of 6 million meals this year. You'll get free VIP live health and fitness coaching from BioTrust team of expert nutrition and health coaches for life with every order, and the free e-report, the top 14 ketogenic foods with every order, of course, at eatrightandfeelwell.com. They say 51% off today. So thanks for the support, BioTrust. Don't forget to go to timcast.com, become a member. You click that sign up button in the top right, and you'll get access to members-only segments of this show. We're going to have one for you tonight at 11 p.m. It is uncensored, and not family friendly. I imagine tonight's will be particularly funny, so it'll be a good time. You'll also be supporting our journalists, our anti-big tech censorship infrastructure. We use Rumble. So don't forget to smash that like button as well. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with your friends if you really do like it. Let's jump to our first story from Not the Bee. 14 GOP senators just voted to limit your right to keep and bear arms, including Lindsey Graham, who said he would vigorously oppose the bill. Well, if you trust Lindsey Graham, you've got other issues going on, okay? So that's basically the story. The Senate on Tuesday broke through nearly 30 years of stalemate on gun control legislation by voting 64 to 34 to advance an 80-page gun safety bill to respond to the mass shootings of Buffalo and Uvalde that left 31 people dead. The Senate voted to proceed to the bill just more than an hour after negotiators unveiled its text, giving lawmakers little time to digest its details. So the bill is actually quite absurd. I was reading that it doesn't mention guns until like page 25. It's mostly like a whole bunch of weird Medicaid bloat that they couldn't get through anywhere else. And they were like, gun control. And they just jammed a bunch of trash into it. But yeah, the bill is actually really bad. You've got the Republican senator from West Virginia, Shelley Moore Capito, who's voting in favor of it, which is nuts. But surprise, surprise, the GOP is selling you out. There's crisis intervention, not red flag laws, crisis intervention, which is literally the same thing. They want a 10-day waiting period and juvenile check for all background checks for anyone under 21, which basically means from 18 to 21 as a legal adult, you will have like a 10-day waiting period, which is what they've been trying to do for a long time. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're trying to ban guns outright, but this is the game they play. They introduce a crazy bill and say, we want to ban weapons. We want to raise the age to 21. Everyone loses their mind and they go, okay, fine. Just enhanced background checks for people over 18, but under 21. That's acceptable, right? And my attitude is like, no. What's acceptable would be the Republicans change what they did. And I think it was Pennsylvania. They took the bill and they just erased all the text and put in constitutional carry instead. How about that? How about the Republicans actually stand up for our right to keep and bear arms? But
makes me wonder, like, if a shooter appears that has an illegally acquired gun and does a mass shooting, like, are they going to then try and make it harder for people to get weapons again? Like, yes. This is complete insanity.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, there are so many laws on the books that would have prevented virtually all of the mass shootings that have become big news stories, but that hasn't prevented them from trying to solve the problem by introducing more laws. And to go back to your point, Tim, I disagree. I mean, I do think they're trying to ban all guns. I think they know that change occurs incrementally. And every time you point out, okay, yeah. And so every time you point out that you know that, they go, that's the slippery slope fallacy, which is not, of course, as we have seen, not a fallacy. The slippery slope fallacy is a fallacy if you're saying you should only be against this because it could lead to other things. But if you're able to explain why it will, based on a pattern we've seen in the past of incremental change constantly occurring where the left says it won't, then that's not fallacious. That's just pattern recognition.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we all agree then. I think that's a wrap for tonight.
Guys.
Good show.
Time for the after show.
Yeah,
let's get dirty. You're right, Seamus, about, I mean, Hitler did it slowly. It took him 10 years. About 19, I think they got started in, not 29, 33, really when Hitler got the, what they call it, what was that act that he signed that basically stripped everybody's rights away?
The Enabling Act?
Yeah. They burned the Reichstag. Somebody burned it. He blamed the communists. And then research has been done on this. And they said, there's no way someone could, these two guys that Hitler blamed or this one guy could have burned that building the way it burned. They tried to replicate it. They're like, no. This was like they think it was a staged, planned event, probably by Hitler, to scare everyone in the country and then do the Enabling Act and seize their weapons.
So I'm quite pissed off at these Republicans.
Yeah.
And one of the Republicans that supported this was Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia. And I'm kind of pissed because we're currently building our new West Virginia headquarters. And I was like, this is a state, it's a great state to invest in, to bring our business, which is, going to bring in a lot of jobs, and we're expanding, all thanks to all of you as members at Timcast.com. And now I have to deal with the Republican senator selling me out. I'm trying to move my business here. They really don't want it. I'll tell you this, Maryland hates us. And I don't mean as in like me personally. I mean, Maryland hates business. Mm-hmm. Like they have laws that are just like, we will flog you for being a business.
It's so insane to start. Even a charity in Maryland is ridiculous costs. Yeah. Like get your act together, you guys. Do you not want me to start a business here?
They don't. New Jersey was the same way. It's like, I would like to start a business and bring, wealth. And they would be like, we're going to beat you over the head instead.
Well,
so we leave New Jersey. We have, a part of our operation in Maryland. And now going through just the logistics of operating in Maryland, I'm just like, it is better for the business to shut everything down and spend like $1 million to just move everything out of Maryland because it is so hostile to business. But now I got to contend with this Shelley Moore Capito woman. So I was just like, okay, I need to confer with my lawyer as to how much money I'm allowed to spend to make sure she never wins re-election again. And I'm really pissed off about this. Perhaps the only thing these people respond to are leftist tactics like organizing 24/7 protests outside their homes or putting up billboards all over their hometown, insulting them and dragging their character. I'm sick of these people. They're scumbags. And the problem is conservatives, there's too many conservatives are cowards, don't do anything. And that's why they do it. These GOP members know that they can support the Democrats and Republicans will grumble and forget about it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. I'm more libertarian than anything. And I'm right pissed off that this woman in the second most Trump supporting state just sold me out. How dare you, madam? I am going to put whatever I can to whatever legal extent to make sure you are retired by your reelection. And the problem is she knows it. Her reelection is until 2026. She's old. She's probably like, well, I'll burn down the house because I'm leaving anyway. These people are absolute scumbags. Cornyn as well. Well, we're going to negotiate on, it's not really red flag laws, literally red flag laws. She puts out a statement. She's like, we will never have red flag laws in these states. So you're just enacting a federal legislation to expand red flag laws, but hoping it doesn't come to West Virginia, you absolute scumbag.
Well, and also this idea of negotiating, right? I mentioned this on the show the other day. They'll talk about compromise. It's not compromise if you don't get anything out of it. It's not a negotiation if there's no need for you to be having a conversation with the person. We've seen the polling data. We can't predict the future, but it's probably likely that Republicans are going to do pretty well in the midterms. So you'd think they'd be able to look down the line and say, we have a little bit of leverage to not have to cave in to the left every single time they demand something of us. But no.
They're going to win the midterms. And everyone's going to clap and cheer. Yep. And then they're going to be like, and now what were you trying to pass, Democrats? Let me sign on to that.
Right. Exactly.
Now that we've won and don't need to argue with you.
Why don't you move to Florida? Come to Florida.
West Virginia's not all bad just because this senator did one bad thing. Ron DeSantis is pretty great. But the weather, it's more expensive. So West Virginia is still a great place for expanding a business. Land is cheap, much less regulation. You guys don't have constitutional carry yet, but I believe it's coming. The gun laws are still not that bad, but I lived in Florida, man, and you can't go out. Well, I lived in Miami for a year, and you just can't go outside.
Yeah,
with a beanie on.
Yeah,
there are little asterisks on the side.
No, Ian, you can't go outside at all.
Hey, man, I'm with you. I was in Miami in February. It was like
drenched.
99 degrees in February.
You can go outside January and February. The windows on every building are drenched.
Yeah, our AC overloaded and started getting all this condensation because I had cracked a window and it flooded the ceiling.
They have a statue of the man who invented air conditioning in Miami. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
They
warned us not to open the window.
I'll say this. I've been trying to think of what I can do. And I was thinking maybe we can start a porta potty company and call them Shelly Crapitos.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe Shelly Capito boxes. And I wonder if there's a legal issue of me doing that. I tweeted can I open a restaurant in Charleston, West Virginia, which is the biggest city? It's only 50,000 people. And then name the restaurant Shelly Moore Capito is trash. I'm wondering, I'm going to look into how much it'll cost to buy every billboard in that town and putting up. I'm not even talking political ads, just character ads. Like you're a bad person, you're scum, and just leave and just buying them indefinitely. And I'm like, it's good marketing because people are going to be like, why are these ads here? Oh yeah, Tim Pool's really pissed off about this. Make sure everybody knows how pissed off I am. Look, I said that I'll put a sticky note on my monitor and I will say I'll put it this way. We have sponsors who pay good money for us to read out their ads and all that. I wonder what the total monetary value of me ragging on her would be if every single night I said, never forget she's a scumbag.
I think when you said earlier about organizing and getting people to rally, obviously you don't want people to go to people's houses, and that's not but you can organize people to call at 2 p.m. on a day. You make a video in the morning and you tell people at 3 p.m. you call this number, this office, and tell her that you want whatever, that you want her to reverse her position on this. And when she gets 780 calls a day for 5 days in a row, she will change her position.
Yeah. But why do you have to do that? Why is her position this position? Like, where did the pressure come from?
You know what I think it is? She's not up for re-election until 2026. She's probably going to retire. I don't know. She's going to be 60s or something. Or I think she's in her 60s. I think she's going to be in her 70s maybe. And so she's probably like, what do I care? I can burn the place down on my way out and get what I want. And some people have pointed out that there was some, like, I don't want to get too much into it, but some exchanges were made. Let's just put it that way. So there was some monetary movement in some capacity that I'm not super familiar with, so I'm not going to get into. But she probably cut a deal. In my opinion, they came to her and said, look, you're not up for re-election until 2026. Your voters are dumb as box of rocks, so they're going to completely forget. That's how they think. That's what they think of you. By the time you're up for re-election, this will be a non-issue. So give it to us now. We'll give you these things, and who cares anyway? And then they probably all popped the champagne, started laughing and spitting on pictures of their constituents. I despise these people.
Yeah,
if it's not obvious.
I can tell.
I can't tell. I can't tell.
Yeah.
But good. I think there is something to what you're saying about putting these people on blast regularly. It's important for your audience to hear, especially members of your audience who live in the area, who actually is interested in representing their interests and who will bend at the last moment. It's very disappointing that there were any Republicans who were willing to sign on to this. Unfortunately, some of them were, and I think we do have a duty to criticize them.
It's also about making contact. You can criticize them in the background, but they're going to ignore it unless you actually call the office, because it's that time. The time is more valuable than the money.
Didn't Chuck Schumer say it was okay to protest at the home of senators?
He did.
Well, that's
I think
insane.
so. Yeah.
He did say that?
I believe so. I can check.
So it's okay? Chuck Schumer said it was...
Chuck Schumer's wrong if he said that.
Why? Why is it wrong?
Well, he said it.
I mean, I think as far as I know, it's illegal.
No, it's not. It's illegal to protest in front of the home of a judge or a member of a court, but that's not getting enforced either.
Right.
So maybe the only thing these people will answer to is an actual angry group of protesters being like, you know what? I'll put it this way. The left, they do these things. It works for them. Republicans keep dropping to their knees. Maybe it's about time some younger libertarian, moderate, conservative, whatever you want to call it, started saying, okay, we can play the game as well.
Yeah. The United States is an angry group of protesters. That was what we were when we started. We still are. The United States is a protest. A wise man told me that one time.
It sounds a lot like mob rule, though. You know, you just get the mob with the pitchforks running the show, and whoever has the bigger mob.
And there's the conundrum.
That's why we have representatives.
The cultural right, which has expanded quite dramatically thanks to the left, now incorporates post-liberals along with moderates and conservatives, as they continually just say, no, we don't do that here. And then the left is like, you got it, buddy, we do. Then Republicans keep just saying it's a simple equation. I'll give it to you in terms of why Twitter likes censorship. Twitter likes censorship for one reason. They have a lot of employees who are very much into censorship. But there's also the fact that, do you think Dave Rubin is going to lead a group of classical liberals with pitchforks and bricks and Molotov cocktails to Twitter HQ
and they're all going
violence?
I agree.
We disagree with you. We disagree.
I disagree.
Do you think Dave Rubin would ever lead a violent mob to the headquarters of Twitter?
I don't know about that. Probably not his style.
Yeah, he definitely
Probably
would.
not his
style.
style.
Do you think Antifa would?
Absolutely.
Of course they
their
would.
whole thing.
Yeah.
And so when you have a dude literally trying to kill a sitting Supreme Court justice and people illegally protesting at the homes of justices, the politicians know exactly who they're afraid of. They're terrified of the left, and the right wing is a bunch of spineless cowards that they can ignore, because the right's always just like, well, hold on there a minute. I remember back in like 2016, I was out in front of Trump Tower in New York, and there was a bunch of people protesting, and there was one dude leaning up against the wall. We were talking. He asked us some questions because we were like journalists covering the event. And I was like, what do you think? You support Trump? He's like, oh, yeah, definitely. And then I was like, so why don't you start saying you support Trump? No, I don't want anyone to know. I was like, okay, dude, secret Trump voters, congratulations. Keep
but
hiding.
don't you see, like, with the school board meetings, the pushback from parents, the pushback on Disney, a lot of this stuff? Like, don't you see the right getting a little fired up and
the parents in Loudoun County
throwing their weight
the
around
right.
a little bit more?
The parents in Loudoun, and a lot of these parents that are speaking up aren't conservatives. They're just regular people who are not doing it for political reasons.
Yeah. We were talking last night about how the right is really everybody that's not being crushed into this cult by the mass media.
Yeah.
And the way you framed it, like the teachers, the parents rising up, the immediate assumption is that must be the right. That's how the media frames it. When you go and talk to these people, and they're like, I don't know anything about that. Loudoun County is like a suburb of DC. You know, it's like a minute away from here. This is like a mixed, very liberal area. These people are getting angry. So you take a look at, you know, I can put it this way. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube purged all of the conservatives who are talking about standing up and protesting. Laura Loomer, chaining herself to Twitter HQ. Oh, they ban her. Alex Jones, they say those metaphors don't fly. Then you get protesters outright breaking the law and Jen Psaki encouraging them to do it. And, you know, social media companies are like, yeah, it's fine.
So what they don't have to worry about, they don't have to worry about conservatives. They have to worry about parents. It's parents, because parents, it's not political. It's about their kids.
They turned parents into a voting bloc.
Exactly.
Which is crazy.
Unbelievable. Yeah, they don't understand. It's so funny. They'll, you know, they'll talk about like how terrified they feel and how scared they are of the right. It's like, all right, if you're scared of someone, you don't start screwing with their kids.
Yeah.
It's so obviously phony.
What can we do? You know, I've been doing, we got a billboard in Times Square, which was like, it was meant to be like a big statement, like we've arrived, like we are now in the space. And that now a whole bunch of other organizations, like, you know, the Daily Wire had Times Square billboard for us. We worked together on one. Parler bought the same digital space that we did. And I'm also looking at like, what's the best way? We've never spent any money on marketing. And so one of the things we came up with was direct marketing is a bad idea. What's a good idea is culture jamming as marketing. So what we did in Times Square was partly that. Some of the best marketing was just calling out Taylor Lorenz for being a liar. That worked really well for us and the Daily Wire. And so I'm wondering, like, how much would it cost to buy every billboard in town of 50,000? I'd imagine it'd be like 20 grand, you know, for a month, because it's a small, very small city. So, okay, what if we just do that? We just start crowdfunding. We start just taking major cultural actions to make bold statements and just dominate the conversation, set the news cycle.
Yeah, let's do it. And it also enhances local economies. That's a good idea.
Do people pay a lot of attention to billboards?
When every billboard in your town is the same one ragging on your local politician, I think people will notice.
Tim is going to put a billboard outside of a Supreme Court justice's house.
He's going to put a billboard.
He's going to Timcast billboard
on a billboard.
You know what I was thinking of doing? So during the lockdowns, I went to a sushi restaurant and nobody was wearing masks. We walk in the front door and we're standing next to the host podium or whatever. And they're like, put a mask on. And then I was like, nobody's wearing masks. And they're like, but you have to wear a mask. And I was like, now hold on there a minute. Like, nobody in the restaurant is wearing a mask. And they're like, they're eating. And I was like, we're planning on eating too. And they're like, no, you have to wear a mask now. And then I was like, if I sit down in that table 5 feet from me, can I not wear the mask? And they were like, yes, but put the mask on now. And then I was like, are you serious? And then all of the employees go, yes. And I'm like, dude, I am done with this. And I was like, you know what I could do? I could hire someone to fly a sign in front of their restaurant or like offer coupons to a rival sushi restaurant across the street or something. Why not? Why not actually do culture jamming to make a statement against those who don't believe in freedom, who are too cowardly, or these politicians? How about I hire 50 people to fly signs all throughout Charleston, West Virginia, that just are dancing with signs saying that Shelley Capito is trash? Just that. Yeah. Make sure everybody knows there's disdain for this person.
There's value to dogging on your opponent. There's also value to enhancing the people you believe in. So I think both are effective.
You know, the funny thing is, someone tweeted at me that as an individual, you can spend as much money as you want on any kind of political statement, and that there are some limits, but if you're doing it as educational, in fact, it could be even tax deductible or something. And I'm like, I don't know about all that. Like, I'll just talk to my lawyer and be like, what am I allowed to do in terms of ragging on rhinos? Because I think it would be excellent marketing for Timcast and the podcast to make like an ad that's like, come watch our podcast, and this politician is a piece of garbage. I think it'd be great advertising. You know,
but that it's political, so certain billboards won't run it because it's political.
Maybe if I just say the person's name is garbage, then it's a free speech thing. Like, well, we were able to say Taylor Lorenz is a liar, or no,
that was
we
true.
said,
I think
we said Taylor Lorenz doxed libs of TikTok.
That's what it was.
And the Times Square billboard was like, that's fine. Yeah, as long as we weren't advertising a product, we were just making a statement.
Part of it is, I think, a good thing for you personally to do is to stay cool, stay calm, and organized. It's a vague like where's the call to action in it, and it might not be for you. That might be for, I'm speaking to myself, because you're very good with fire and aggression and stuff like that. But I think it's the long game. it's going to be a 50-year, 100-year. They need you calm and able to see the big picture.
I'm just taught. You know what I'm really bored with? It's like everything's just so routine and the same thing. Like
Exactly.
the left comes out and there's a double standard.
Imagine if we did this. Yeah.
And then exactly the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, won't someone please throw a figurative pie?
The name calling falls into that though. With it's boring, it's repetitive. You know, everyone's a racist, everyone's a bigot, everyone who disagrees with you is disinformation. You know, hate speech.
But that's,
it's just so repetitive. It's monotonous.
Put a funhouse
It
mirror.
loses its effectiveness when it's applied to everybody that you disagree with.
Let's put a funhouse mirror in front of these people's faces.
Yeah.
I saw a while ago, and this is something we all see frequently, but someone posted an article on Twitter about the racist origins of blank. And they said, look, this is this really interesting article. It's like, how could any article calling something racist be interesting at this point?
All right.
How could you possibly read that and be like, wow, what an original thought. You called something you didn't like racist.
Seth,
Does that still get clicks?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
give me a random noun.
A person, place, or thing. A random noun.
Random.
House.
Make it a good. Oh, that one's too obvious. Get a little bit more obscure.
Dog.
That was my first
Well,
thought.
okay, I'm gonna put it this way.
I got a good
I'm
one.
going
Dog,
to
yeah, just
search
do
for
it.
a noun as racist,
A
but do
amygdala.
it.
Yeah.
Search dog
okay,
is
fine.
racist.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Dog
Dogs
is
are
racist.
Yeah.
Bet
Why
it
is my dog racist? Can dogs be racist? Can dogs be racist? What to do if your dog seems racist? Can dogs be racist?
What?
I
That's
think
a
their
real
dog
question,
is racist.
yeah.
My dog is racist.
Look up dogs are racist. I'm sure you'll see some article about gentrification.
I remember the article,
I've seen this
dude.
before. Yeah.
I remember the article. What? It's the same thing. Ask Amy. I think their dog is
Dude,
racist.
I looked up amygdala. The effects of skin tone on race-related amygdala activity.
Wow.
I mean, maybe
Here we go.
it's like that's
Houses are
genetic
racist.
realism or something.
Well, this one's easy.
Well, of course they are.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that one's obvious. But
Racist
give me a
architecture.
good noun,
Computer.
Seamus.
Computer.
Oh, come on.
Good
That one's
one.
too obvious.
No, it's not that obvious.
Computers are racist.
Sour Patch Kids.
When computers are racist, rise of the racist robots, master and slave, the fight over offensive terms, can computers be racist? Come on. These are Green News Guard certified. Artificial intelligence is racist. Even AI is racist. Computer programs
What about
are racist
mugs?
and sexist.
Mugs. Let's try mugs.
Mugs are racist.
Yeah, eyeglasses. That's what I
Mugs
know.
are racist. Racist. Oh, now it's selling me stuff.
There you go. Capitalism wins.
Amazon
Again.
racist coffee mug.
So the thing is, we did learn that there are indeed racist mugs.
Turns out you can buy one.
racist mugs at Zazzle. No, like this one's all selling me.
Can Starbucks
No, I know,
fix
that's what I'm saying.
racism with a message on
Racism
cup?
101, mugs, cocktails, and statues. Bro, I'm telling you, you can get... This one's funny because the entire search is like...
They're trying to sell you racist mugs.
But there was
I
one
guess
article.
There's a market for it.
There's one article talking about mugs, cocktails, and statues, racism 101.
Okay, I got a good noun for you. Racism.
Racism
Is
is
racism
racist.
racist?
Yeah, let's find out.
Probably not. Won't be able to find it.
Well,
anywhere.
I mean, I was
I
told
might have
love is
broke it.
love, so racism might be racist.
I mean...
Is that really a thing though? Racism? I don't know.
I mean, the problem there is that I don't think Google search can accurately understand what that
can't,
means.
Gotcha,
deal with, can't
Google.
deal with tautologies.
Yeah. Flags are racist.
What
of
about
course, yeah.
Swords.
Flags
are
are racist. Confederate battle flag. How Americans feel about the U.S. flag. Why is the Confederate flag racist?
Oh, of course.
So that's most of the time with the Confederate. Let's do this. Let's do minus Confederate. Minus Confederate. Did I spell that wrong?
He's using Google.
Thin
There you
blue
go.
line
Blue line, there we
flags.
go. There we
yeah.
go.
American flag flyers are racist.
Yeah, remember the flags on
It's just-
trucks? Journalists are freaking
Well,
out.
it's all racist.
Mowing your lawn is racist. I saw an article about that.
Mowing
go.
If you-
your
if you
lawn is
Do any
racist.
landscaping at all? It's
Yes,
privileged.
gentrification.
Super
It's
racist.
better to have tall grass?
Manicured lawns are racist.
That's
Decolonized.
Gad's
I'm trying to
Yeah,
find
I
out if
know.
ninjas are racist.
I'm sure.
That was
I'm
Gad
using
sad,
Brave,
though. That was
though.
Gad sad, though. He could be joking.
He's definitely
Yeah,
joking.
no,
Right.
but I'm not sure if he's actually referencing anything in that joke. Is what
How
I'm
I
saying.
think
Perfect.
Ryan Long did this bit where he was like, you know, how to write an article, and then he was like, just what was it? He was like pulling nouns and adjectives out of a hat.
Yeah.
Why blank is blank, and then he showed all the articles that actually existed. That was just absolutely insane. The dogs being racist one was a big deal because a bunch of people were pointing out that they were saying dogs are a sign of gentrification, and dogs themselves are racist because they like bark at minorities or something like that.
Well, it's so in a weird way, this is obviously a sign of cultural decay, but there's also something here about the bubble that's existed within the new media landscape. So you've talked about this before, but basically you had a lot of venture capitalists investing in blog type websites and news sites. So these companies were way overvalued. They hired a bunch of people to write articles. There's only so many things you can write articles about. So eventually you just got a bunch of stuff about racism, and the market became oversaturated with stuff that no one was really reading.
Let me talk to you guys about this. We briefly mentioned it a couple days ago, the dead internet theory.
Yeah.
Do you guys know about this?
Interesting theory.
Yeah, from the other day, I remember this.
The dead internet theory is that in 2016 and 17, that's when major corporations, government figures took over most social elements of the internet and replaced humans with bots, or that the bots dramatically outweigh the production of content than humans do. So the internet is actually a zombie. You think you're interacting with other people just like you, but you're really just interacting with bots. And it's a decent theory. I mean, the idea is simple. Donald Trump was memed into the presidency. Regular people went online and said, here's what we want, and Trump wins. And they went, uh-oh, that's bad. Then you get a bunch of companies that start running sock puppet accounts and bot accounts, trying to make money or manipulate. And it's not a conspiracy, even though they call it a conspiracy theory. It's like the natural tendency of what corporations would do to try and gain influence and sell products. But I got one more for you. This one's for you guys, Seamus and Seth. I think this is bot person theory. The actual conspiracy theory, in my opinion, is that 2016, 2017 is the point at which the internet crossed the threshold of being the most dominant media network for human beings. Newspapers, television, telephone were now underneath the internet. And with all people being online, we're now realizing that most people are as dumb as a box of rocks, effectively non-player characters. So to somebody who's used to having a real conversation, to being politically discerning or introspective, they're seeing a whole bunch of people post the same thing, repeat themselves, regurgitate. And this is how the theory started. The person basically said, I've seen the same post over and over again. I've seen the same comments repeated ad nauseum. And I'm just like, you want to believe they're robots, but it could just be that most people are just sheep and are just vomiting up the same thing they heard. And the reality is it's people. That's the creepy thing.
I think it's a better explanation. It's if I'm there and I'm real, and you're there and you're real, and you're there and you're real, we're all there, we're real. There's a lot of real people there. It's not all bots. There's obviously a lot of people involved in this thing. It's not all dead. And people do just parrot these lines over and over, and it's mindless. They just say whatever they're supposed to say, or what they've heard. They regurgitate what they've heard. And I see it all the time, and it seems like bot behavior, but it's really just people. We have become bots. We're basically just machines, just regurgitating stuff.
Yeah,
and you gotta be careful not to fall into that trap yourself when you're engaging with them. Well, then you just start saying what you're supposed to say in response to that, and you're engaging in your own,
That's why I post nonsense on Twitter. That's why I said, figuratively throw a pie, like do something weird.
Yeah.
I posted an Trump is a chicken.
Yeah.
I thought this my whole life. I was just like, how come no one ever does anything unpredictable? Like, it's not really true. That's never, but 80% of the time it's completely predictable. 20% of the time you're going to be surprised by what someone does. And I was just like, for the most part, everybody's walking around doing exactly what you'd expect them to do. Not a single person decides to do anything weird.
That's why
some people do. I started making stuff.
They're all just thinking really weird things.
Yeah,
that's when I started making internet videos. Like, what would Jesus Christ do with this modern technology? He'd make internet videos and try and spread the God. So I was like, I'll do it, and so I did it, and that was weird. And it's not me.
That's not weird. It's completely routine and boring.
Of course, everyone's doing it.
Right.
It's the natural order is to live like Jesus. What I'm saying
is, like, how come no one's buying porta potties and labeling them Shelley Moore Capito? You know what I mean? Like, you've got all these powerful, wealthy people who are complaining but doing nothing or doing very little.
I think the power of making an internet video is misunderstood. It's not quite the power you have. The resonation of your vibration through voice and light is so powerful.
Dude, if I made $50 million a year or something like that, I would just go to these companies and be like, how much will it cost to buy like 10 Times Square billboards and just put up the same thing, just doing something weird like ragging on Shelley Moore Capito?
Well, so I will answer with a Jordan Peterson quote, right? It's like, it's not many people are creative, and it's not obvious why you would want to be, because like creative people are miserable when they're not doing creative things. And he sort of had this very insightful, interesting explanation there. But yeah, it's basically that. I mean, most people are not creative in the way that we usually define the term. And so they're not interested in doing those kinds of things. I think when somebody is more creative and they do have means, they're often afraid to do anything interesting with it.
Man, that's lame.
Just because-
Sure, but I think it's the way things are.
Because they're afraid of being told that they suck.
Elon's buying Twitter.
Elon
I mean,
is
that's
a
cool.
very unique example, right? And we talked about this with Jeremy Boring, right? Just sort of comparing Elon to Bezos. And he described Bezos as what, like the most boring, interesting person, or most interesting, boring person. Something
It's like he
that.
builds a rocket, but it's like not cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think you see a lot of that.
Do you think that people with means that are creative, they're afraid of being told that they suck?
Well, no. So I think that's part of it. I think that everyone has an excuse not to do the interesting thing they want to do. So when you don't have a lot of money, it's I could never do this because I couldn't afford to. Then when you do have money, well, I could never do this because I could never afford to damage my reputation or risk my wealth.
I guess people are scared of their reputations or something.
Yeah.
That's the big
Your
thing.
brand, yeah, the
And
brand.
people always have been. I think we put more emphasis on it today, and I think we've been trained to. We've become very narcissistic, but it's huge for people.
Isn't there a point where you just have so much money? They say it's FU money, but it's not. It's not. I mean, let's be real. Can we name? I guess Elon Musk is buying Twitter, which is cool. It's not particularly outrageous. It did anger many people on the left, but it's actually a relatively. It's a big bold move, but it's not throwing a pie. You know what I mean?
You don't think so?
No. Throwing a pie would be like buying a Super Bowl commercial or buying a billboard of Ian in Hollywood just saying, I remember you, and just like culture jamming.
Well,
From my perspective, I never expected, I was trying to think to myself, well, what would be a possible solution to this issue of viewpoint discrimination happening on these platforms? There's either going to be some kind of a law that's passed, possibly, Congress could get involved and draft legislation, or the courts could do something. I never in a million years thought, oh, well, maybe the richest man in the world is going to come along, describe himself as a free speech absolutist, and buy the platform and fix the problem. It was a curveball. It was unexpected. So if you go back to the point that you were making about no one ever does anything unexpected, like, who expects that someone's going to come in and offer more than the company's worth just to make a point about how this needs to be free speech?
I would say it's on the line. A rich guy buying something expensive is like, okay, it is surprising that someone made a move like that. But it's not like if Elon came out and said he was going to put $100 million into making a rival news organization, that would be like, whoa. But I will say Elon definitely fits the bill. Definitely. Because he tweets things at like AOC, like "Stop making me blush," like absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but
So he's definitely doing it.
Yeah, he trolls people very effectively.
Very nice.
I think it's also a definitional problem, right? Because if you're asking why aren't people usually doing things that are unpredictable, if they were, it would be predictable. I mean, by definition, for something to be unpredictable, it has to happen infrequently.
But I'm just saying, there are a lot of very wealthy people that are, and many of them are somewhat directly or tangentially involved in like culture war issues. And like, how come nobody just does bold, weird things? Save Elon, right? Because he tweeting at AOC was hilarious. Buying Twitter is massive. It's like, I've talked about this many times. There's very few people who just do the weird things.
Well, Donald Trump did with the Apprentice. That was so weird.
But
like,
that was just a
and then he did the
reality TV
president
show.
thing. Yeah, but then he ran for president, and he always kind of.
That was weird.
That one was weird.
We can acknowledge, like we've said this a number of times. If you told someone 10 years ago that Trump was going to be president and the deep state was going to try to unseat him and everything that's happened, we would go, I don't believe that. Just some weird things.
Seriously, just let's pause for a second. Imagine it's 2012 and you're like sitting with your buddy and like you're in the living room and he's like, you're like, I've come back from the future 10 years. And he's like, wow, what happened? You're like, okay, well, Donald Trump ran for president against Hillary Clinton and won. And then a bunch of special interests accused him of secretly working with Russia. And even MSNBC had a guest on entertaining that he may have been a Soviet agent going back to the 80s. He ultimately won. Then Joe Biden gets elected. Donald Trump supporters think the election was stolen, so several hundred stormed the Capitol building during the electoral vote counting process. Texas files a lawsuit against Pennsylvania, and half the country and other half the country are now involved in whether or not the election was legitimate. They're going to be like, what? Mm-hmm. That's
I'd
never
be like,
going to
so
happen.
was Obama's birth certificate real or fake?
Yeah.
Did we get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, did we ever get to the bottom
Did we
of that
ever
one?
figure that out? How does Lost end? No, I get that was probably after 2012. Before 2012.
Let me try and phrase what I mean. It's like, because obviously Elon Musk is doing funny things, but like, he's not doing funny things like buying 100 porta potties and putting the name of a senator on it and distributing them around fairgrounds. You know what I
think
mean?
you should just do it. You're fixated on that.
800
You really want to do it.
You want to see in the world.
It's a really good example. Exactly. No, it's $800 per porta potty.
Yeah.
So
nice.
you know, we spend $80,000 on 100 porta potties, and then just be like, they're free. You know, like, oh, what's that? You're doing call construction companies and be like, well, just give it to you, just use it. And they're called Shelly boxes.
I think another thing that happens, and this is really insidious, and it's not accounted for often, but there's an entire set of behaviors that we are told are weird and quirky and interesting, but which are really boring and predictable. So a lot of folks feel like they're doing something unique or new when they're just sort of going along with the program. So there are a lot of examples of this. We see this with the activism a lot of these companies engage in, where they'll make their corporate logo a gay pride flag or something. And it's okay, well, that's the most predictable thing you can do, but you think it's edgy and brave and interesting. Or at least for a time they did. At this point, they're probably willing to acknowledge that this is just the thing you're expected to do.
And don't forget, July is MAGA month, so everyone's got to change their logos to American flags. And I'm doing it. I'm gonna get graphics made. You know, my Twitter profile will be my face with the American flag behind it.
I like that.
But
yeah.
I mean, how often? I'm sure we've all encountered this, where somebody gives you the most banal, predictable, advertiser-friendly perspective, as if it's something new and original. All the time. I mean, it's constant. It's like whenever someone's like, you know what, like, I don't like Christianity, or like, well, and it's like, okay, it's like, I understand that, but can you acknowledge that that's a very safe position? But people don't do that anymore. Like, their view has to be unique and interesting, even when it's plainly banal.
I wonder if it's just, you know, in my perspective, most people, they play music because they looked up to someone and want to emulate somebody else. Most people just want to emulate someone else. So they want to fit in, they want to stay in line. I wonder how many people genuinely don't care about fitting in, and I wonder if that's technically like a mental illness. No, I mean it, because humans are social beings. You want to fit in to survive, so it takes a very rare individual to be like, literally don't care if I fit in or not. Like, what would I do if, you know, we were like nomadic tribesmen, you know, thousands of years ago, and I was being arrogant, like, I don't want to do what you say, screw you. They'd be like, get out. And I'd be like, well, I'm going to go die, I guess, in the middle of the woods. So it's like, I talk about making these Shelly boxes, but would people really be like, would they be like, that's great? Or would they be like, you're really disrupting what we're trying to do here.
I made outhouse, put poster on it. They'd be like, leave now.
Rug.
They're like, this is
Rug
one of the
on
people
toilet.
leading our tribe. Leave now.
Or is the reality that the outliers and the weirdos end up being the leaders?
Sometimes they're snuffed out. You never hear about them.
I think what ends up happening is the sociopaths, like the narcissists and the egotists, end up becoming the leaders. People who are like, I should be in charge. And then once they're in charge, they're like, I can lie, cheat, and steal and do whatever I want because I'm better than you.
I think Ben Franklin was a nut job, but he was so organized that he was able to create a periodical, you know, the Poor Richard's Almanac, and distribute propaganda for 30 years to brainwash people into thinking that freedom was the way and that they should revolt against the king. So he worked out. Do what Ben Franklin did.
Fly a kite in a storm with a key on it.
Yeah. Absorb electricity.
It's time to do that too.
Get weird. They never
I'm
talk
starting to
about
buy
his
into
drugs.
your he was crazy theory.
I like that. Yeah, it's a good point.
Ben Franklin. He's a polymath, they call them.
Talking about weird stuff, though, let's talk about what you guys do at the Babylon Bee.
Oh, thanks.
Because
Good transition. Good transition.
Smooth.
no, but I
Ben
mean,
Franklin.
like you are figuratively throwing pies. You're calling out hidden truths, as it were, through jokes. A good example is when you guys had an article that said, ingenious move, Donald Trump comes out in support of impeachment, forcing Democrats to oppose. And that is a very clever way to comment on the fact that they just oppose whatever it is Trump or, you know, Trump supporters are doing.
Yeah, he said it, therefore it's bad. Orange man bad. Orange man bad. Well, that goes back to how everybody's like a bot. You know, that's bot behavior, to just have a predictable response to whatever it, you know, there's something that you're supposed to be opposed to, so you oppose it. I don't know. I mean, with the internet, though, you know, Instagram and all these things, people are just trying to do what you're supposed to do on these platforms. Everyone has the same family pictures. They all do the same things. But if you're trying to throw pies and be disruptive, then that's your thing. You're trying to do it. It has to be something that you're not deliberately trying to do. It just has to be coming from you naturally. It's because that's how you are as a person. You're different. Right. Otherwise, you're both doing something for a purpose. You're trying to get a certain kind of response. People are either trying to fit in or they're trying to be different and get a response by being different.
That's true. I don't take issue with someone being like, let's throw a pie, figuratively. because don't actually throw pies at people. But like when I'm on Twitter, I'll just randomly post some nonsense if I'm feeling like it. Like I posted Jeremiah was a bullfrog the other day because I just I thought it was fun.
You need to be more responsible.
It was a whim. Literally, I was listening to Three Dog Night, and so Joy to the World came on, and I just typed it in, hit enter, and I didn't think twice. I was like, all right.
So you made a point about people being bots, and we've sort of talked about this a little bit. There are obviously some issues where it makes sense to stand strong, have base principles. So when you're talking about something where you would say there is an axiomatic evil, or you're talking about like abortion or some matter of like human sexuality, such as homosexuality, you're talking about theft, property, etc. It makes sense that you would have set positions because of what your principles are. But then when it comes to a question of whether a specific person is guilty in a court case or a national story, that's not something you can just jump to one side or the other on. That's something you have to see evidence for. But we are at the point where anytime there is a news story about a police officer shooting someone, a large subsection of the country has decided he's guilty and it was unjustified without any evidence at all.
Conservatives are still defending Ahmaud Arbery. Like
yeah,
that one to me is like, because we had lawyers on talking about that.
I think my point is there are a lot of stories that we see in the public eye where it's just a question of a specific person, their behavior, whether they're guilty of the thing that they're accused of, and people are hyperpolarized on it. And I think this has happened because we're just used to being hyperpolarized, but it's different, right? Because again, when it comes to the other issues, it's a matter of principle. Whether a specific person is guilty or innocent when I don't have evidence is not something that my principles can determine. It's something the evidence will determine once we get it. But people take sides before they see or hear anything of substance about the case.
And the entirety of the left, including establishment Democrats, moderate liberals, default liberals, and leftists, will blindly march in lockstep.
Yep.
They'll get angry about it, they'll protest about it, and they'll scream in your face and try and take your job. And conservatives are lukewarm and will be like, okay, we'll agree with you on that one.
I think, and the fun thing about satire is it gives you a way to point all of that out in a way that like makes the point, it makes it into a joke where you're seeing that and you're exposing it for what it is, the absurdity of it.
Did you see
subverting it?
Fast Company wrote an article saying something like beware the far right comedy or whatever, or right wing comedy, and they're like from Joe Rogan to the Babylon Bee to like the Daily Wire. And I just think it's funny that they still try and push these memes where they're like the right can't make jokes or it's not funny. But the weird thing is, it used to be the perception that conservatives weren't funny and the left was. There was, in the article, they talk about how Fox tried doing some kind of Jon Stewart show back in the day that just didn't work and it failed. But now you've got Gutfeld, who on Fox News, he gets way better ratings than any of the primetime comedians on major networks. You take a look at The Onion. Bro, I imagine, Seth, that you used to read The Onion.
Yeah, of course.
What happened to them?
So the problem, a lot of the reason why these late night comedians and The Onion and whatever are falling off is because they're not, what the comedian, the satirist, the humorist is supposed to be doing is poking holes in the popular narrative, not promoting it. All they do is push it. And the big tech companies are, trying to rig the system so that you're not allowed to poke holes in the popular narrative. If you do that, then you're engaging in hate speech or you're spreading misinformation or whatever. But this is what's killing comedy, in my opinion. They say, "Oh, we're not funny." Well, we have more engagement and traffic than The Onion at this point. We're the most popular satire site in the world, and they're sitting there saying we're not funny. Well, obviously we're engaging people, and the reason we're engaging people is because we're actually making fun of the powers that be and trying to hold that power accountable and poke holes in the popular narrative instead of promote it, which is what comedians are supposed to do.
I grew up with The Onion because I think they were based out of Milwaukee, I think, and I remember when we would get the physical Onion paper when we were in Chicago. Look at this one. Excerpts from Ginny Thomas's emails attempting to overturn the 2020 election.
CNN.
No, it's too political.
Is that, right? Is that like a CNN
They weren't
article?
political in the early days.
Well, this is the thing. They were in a way that was actually funny.
Here's one.
Well, you got to go into the slideshow. That's a slideshow.
Preacher not drenched in sweat must not be very connected to Holy Spirit.
There you go.
What's the joke? Now, fine. Whenever I point this out, there was one story that was literally not a joke. And then I was like, legit, what is the joke here? And they were like, you're so dumb, you don't get the joke. And I'm like, I guess so, dude. I don't care. Like, you can laugh at me because I don't get it. That's fine. It means I don't read your outlet.
Right.
And
see, it would have been like, preachers connected to Holy Spirit. Why isn't he sweating? They mislabeled that.
I don't think that one's their.
It's not funny.
I'll put it this way. I mean, The Onion is not what it used to be. They used to be very political, and
This is
over
this
the
is
past
claptrap.
couple of years.
This is not jokes.
No, yeah, but over the past couple of years, so probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I rediscovered the videos that they were producing. I want to say between 2008 and 2011, and they're so funny. Their YouTube channel was incredible for just a couple years. And part of it was because they actually had a TV show, and those clips on YouTube were excerpts from them.
Oh, really?
But man, yeah. But they...
Let's be real.
They used to be very funny, even when they got political, is my point. They were still funny. And even when they had a message I didn't agree with politically, I thought they were hysterical.
The Grabblers video.
That was great.
You know the Grabblers video?
No, I don't know that one. It's an Onion video.
It's an Onion video.
Oof, we cannot
where-
play it here.
Yeah, we definitely can't play it.
Spicy.
Even though it's on YouTube.
Really funny.
Where basically it's a mockery of a morning news show, and they bring on this female author to help them visualize their stresses. And she's like this little old woman, like, everybody has problems with money. I want you to imagine your money problem. And then she basically goes on to describe Jewish people and then makes a bunch of really offensive jokes. But the point was, what was funny about it was that this little old lady was basically trying to sneak in like these anti-Semitic tropes. And that was the joke. That was the Onion that did that. They also had that autistic reporter bit. Totally ableist. You wouldn't be able to get away with that these days. They had funny jokes. Now, look, I pulled up this joke. And it's, okay, let me, here you go. Here's their joke. Hey, current Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, it's me, Ginny Thomas, wife of Clarence Thomas, urging you to illegally overturn the results of the 2020 election, as I am involved with a group of alt-right radicals who, if unhappy with the results, will storm the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. I agree with their goals and methodologies full-heartedly, and again, I, Ginny Thomas, am unabashedly requesting that this illegal action should be taken. Where's the joke?
All right, but like this is something
ridiculous.
I would
Colbert.
write if the joke was that like this is what Democrats think a Republican is saying. Like that would be the bit.
I pulled up their 2001.
Actually-
I got into Onion in 2001. A boyfriend ceremoniously dumped. I mean, these were the articles, and they would show a picture of a person's face, and they would reuse that same. So you would imagine this is the writer. It was like a fake person, or just some random stock photo they got. So imagining who was saying it helps the comedy, I thought, in the early days.
You know what I think? Like, it's clapter, right? You guys know what clapter is?
Yeah. You just agree. There's like a vague,
Laugh now,
set up punchline
applause.
formula, but
It's
people
when
are clapping because they
it's
like
when
your
Colbert
point.
comes out and he's like, Donald Trump's dumb, and they'll go ha 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 and start clapping. It's like he didn't
It's
say
not.
anything.
It's
you know?
not amusement you're going for. It's applause you're going for.
So I
Yeah,
look
and there's
at
a lot of that, and there's a lot of just avoiding hurting people's feelings by being offensive now. You know, the woke mind virus, as Elon Musk calls it, has infected all of these comedians on the left, you know, and so they're all the jokes that they would have made years ago that are funny. They're capable of making those jokes, but they're not willing to make them now because they cross a line, an imaginary line that they made up.
There was a really good one they did a couple of years ago. The Onion is like 10 years ago. It was Patriotic Teen Fails Spanish. And it was just a video where they're like interviewing this kid as a brave patriot for failing Spanish tests. And obviously the point of that joke was to poke fun at the right. But I thought it was hilarious when I saw it. And it's a funny video. Now it's not just that they have a left-wing bias. It's that today having a left-wing bias means you have to explicitly oppose anything that's even remotely funny.
Here's one: farmer caught Googling what is corn. It's like, okay,
What?
Yeah.
it's like, all right.
It's a different company with the same name.
I don't.
It's a problem, man. Companies sell to
now-
another owner, and then they keep the same name. That's scandalous.
Also, I'd be curious to know, because there are clearly some duds here. We're obviously remembering the ones that were really funny.
I used to
That's
cry
why they
laughing.
stick out to us. Yeah. So I'm wondering also if there's just a selection bias here, because none of these are going to stand the test of time. And
maybe
there were
they were
probably
never
some
funny.
boring.
And
but there were a couple funny ones we saw when we were younger that we really remember.
I think that stuff that used to be funny is no longer funny too, because we get used to it, and like you gotta
true.
one up it. You know, you gotta take it to the next level or go home.
There was one they did too. It was like New Humane. Tim, what we were just watching, like New Humane death penalty contraption, like rips person's head off.
It showed they actually did a
You
CGI
got-
of a machine that clamps the person down, and then a giant robotic claw grabs their head and spins it and rips it off their body, and then it raises it up, and a hammer just starts bashing it for no reason. That was funny.
It was funny.
But that was like 10 years ago.
Even stuff like now there's obviously, even with that, you could argue there's vague political undertones. You know, they're making a statement about the death penalty and how barbaric they believe it is. But it's funny. It's funny. You can make a political point and still be funny, but they don't.
It was funny because after it already killed the person, a hammer starts bashing the head.
Well,
Why would you do that?
I'll tell you some of the criticism that we've gotten. Like Slate did a piece about us, and a couple other publications have written pieces like this where they say, "Here's the reason the Babylon Bee is not funny. They're not funny because they're rather than having their jokes tethered to the truth or reality, their jokes are riding on the back of some political narrative. And so what they're saying is there's fake news that we're attaching our jokes to. So we're promoting fake news with satire that's like riding on the top of that. Does that make sense? Whereas The Onion or left-wing comics are rooted in reality. And I feel like it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Like, and the validation of that is the fact that our jokes constantly come true. You know, we make these jokes and they come true. It's like, well, there's a reason they come true. It's because that we were onto something. There was a point to the joke that we were making, and reality just caught up to us.
Yeah.
Sometimes within a matter of hours. The Onion's jokes don't come true as often as our jokes. Their jokes aren't as attached to reality as ours are, honestly.
The Onion had two really, really good jokes in the past few years. One was presidency already aging Joe Biden 10 years, and it showed a rotted corpse.
Yeah.
Like, that was good. And then the other one was, this was back in like 2019 or 2020, and it said, naked Andrew Yang appears from time portal to warn us about, you know, AI in the future or whatever. Like, that one was also pretty good.
There was, so, and this is something I've experienced before too, with just like cracking a joke about something and it turns out to be true a few years down the line because these people are generally pretty predictable. But there was a really great Babylon Bee article I want to highlight. Public school student can't read but is already racist at a 12th grade level. I thought that, like, that's hilarious. That's a good joke. And I don't understand how someone can read that and go like, that's clearly fake news disguised as a punchline. It's like, no, that is very obviously a joke. And so a while ago, as I'm sure you know, and I've brought it up on the show a number of times, Snopes did an extremely pseudo-scientific analysis of Babylon Bee articles where they rewrote the headlines to remove the joke, make it sound like it was an actual story, and then asked people, do you think that this is an actual story? And then based on the number of people who said yes, they totaled them as people who thought the original Babylon Bee headline was a true story. So they said, of course we have to fact check satire.
Snopes highlighted that study. They didn't conduct the study.
Oh, they didn't conduct the study?
Yeah, it was done at some university, and then they republished it, the findings. But they didn't just rewrite our headlines. They literally reworded them so they didn't sound like jokes anymore.
No, they took the jokes out.
Yeah, they took the joke out, stripped it of its like comedic, structure.
Yes.
And removed the image. And the image is usually like a silly Photoshop, like a fake looking Photoshop or ridiculous outlandish image. They take that away too and just present you with this like, headline that maybe it could be true. I don't know, but it certainly doesn't sound like a joke.
So one example, So one example was you guys did a bit that was like, it's with a picture of some news anchor and it says, God allowed the Mueller report to test our unshakable faith in collusion. And they reworded it as CNN news anchor Anderson Cooper said his belief that Trump colluded with Russia is unshakable. It will not change regardless of statement or evidence to the contrary. That is a completely different sentence.
Yeah.
And so to ask people if one sounds true, and then when they answer that it does sound true, to apply it to the first statement is just totally dishonest.
I have issues with satire in that I'm concerned when people don't know it's satire. How do you manage that?
With people not knowing it's satire?
Yeah, because if some article comes up and you don't know ahead of time, like this is a satire newspaper, and which is a lot of times why they ask you to put satire on do they, like with your descriptions in like your Twitter or like any other...
I mean, they can. It's labeled satire in the sense that if you actually click on our website, like our tagline is "Fake news you can trust," and like our About Us page is obviously a joke, but we don't put on every article "This is satire" and then close the article with "What you just read was satire." We're not just. It kind of kills the joke to be constantly reminding people this is a joke. So you can't do that really.
Yeah.
So you have to just present it. And people either get it or they don't. And a lot of people don't.
I want to point out real quick, you mentioned selection bias for The Onion. So I pulled up the Wayback Machine and I looked at a few 10-year-old archival posts. And they're not particularly funny, to be honest. There's a few ones. And I think there's something interesting I see here because some of these do make me want to chuckle. Super Bowl veterans much more prepared for big game's unique stresses. Rookies often rattled by pools of boiling blood, scything blades, psychosexual hallucinations. Okay... That one's at least a little edgy, and it gave me a chuckle. And you look at the modern stuff now, and it's kind of just like, there's one that's like kill your dad, and it's like a woman like waving something at her dad. I'm like, it's just not
doing
there.
comedy now. You're tiptoeing through a minefield. Comedians are literally getting attacked on stage. Chappelle's attack.
that was crazy.
Chris Rock was slapped in the face. You know, like
Yeah.
other people. There's stories about that. There was just one in the New York Post a couple of weeks ago. You know, about how it's not just you've heard about a lot of these cases, but there's cases happening at smaller comedy clubs too, where comedians are feeling like they need armed security to go on stage and make jokes because they're going to offend somebody who's going to get violent.
Yeah.
Or the right to keep and bear arms,
Right.
and defend themselves.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned this term that Snopes uses, which is labeled satire, which I just also want to highlight. There's something a little bit sneaky there, right? Like, this isn't obviously satire. It's labeled satire.
They
but
claim
it's
it's
still
satire.
like, it leaves the question of whether you guys intend it to be satire or
Right.
not.
That's intentional. That's
Yeah.
intentional.
Or like a news organization that's masked as a satire organization.
Well, because their position is, and they haven't changed it, their position is that we are claiming to be a satire site, so that we can mislead people.
Yeah.
How does that even make sense?
It's a claim. New York Times described us as a far-right misinformation site that sometimes traffics in misinformation under the guise of satire.
Wow.
So like a comedian. That'd be like that's a long way of saying it's a comedian.
Right. Under the guise of satire, though, you know, we're putting it on. We're wearing the costume. We're claiming we're satire.
But it
when we're
says
not.
satire
it's
on the
like-
website. It says fake news at the
Yes.
top of the website.
Well,
Yeah,
and also
pretty
that,
clear.
like he said, the pictures that go along with the articles
Yeah.
are clearly photoshopped.
There's a lot of context clues. For
Yeah,
you. A lot of
it's
context
usually
clues.
like a setup punchline formula in the headline.
Like if people are not discerning enough to understand the difference between reality and fantasy, it's not my fault. I can't lower the bar to hook the idiots.
There's a big
Dead
difference
produce.
too, by the way.
Human bot theory. It's not the internet, it's the people.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between, you know, a fake news site, and this is what they're trying to lump us in with. You know, you'll see a fake news site that pops up, and they want to get clicks. So they do a story about how Kevin Hart dies in car accident, and that's the headline. Kevin Hart dies tragically in car accident. Well, it didn't happen, and that's not a joke. It's not funny. They're just
a lie.
making up a fake headline. It's a lie, and it's a lie that gets clicks because people are like, "Oh my God, did Kevin Hart die?" And then they share it. So, you know, when we write a joke, you know, that's not what we're not just trying to like throw something out there that might get clicks. There's a point. There's a punchline. You know, and the whole thing ties together. The headline, the image, everything. It all ties together. So, you're never going to be able to get 100% of your audience to understand that you're doing satirical jokes.
Well, you
never
guys
will.
don't remember the legendary Babylon Bee article? Kevin Hart died. You guys, it was
Don't
huge. It went
remember that.
viral. It was really
Tragic.
spread
Kevin
fake
Hart
news,
dies
yeah.
in car accident. That's our best headline.
Did you guys get banned off Twitter? Did Babylon Bee get banned off Twitter? There was some drama about it a couple months ago or something.
Babylon Bee did a joke. Well, so the USA Today named Rachel Levine Woman of the Year.
Oh, right.
And Babylon Bee responded to that. We did a joke about how Rachel Levine had been picked as our Man of the Year. And Twitter didn't like that very much. So, yeah, we got reported for hateful conduct, and we were told to delete the tweet.
Wow.
And basically, instead of them just taking it down, which, you know, to my thinking, if they have a problem with this tweet, they can take it down. They don't have to force me to like bend the knee and admit that I did something wrong. But they want us to say that we engaged in hateful conduct and acknowledge that and delete the tweet and take it down. And so what we've done, we've been in Twitter jail for 3 months because we've refused to.
Oh, awesome.
But as soon as Elon makes that purchase,
As soon as Elon makes that purchase, we'll see. I mean, he's given us no assurances, but I would expect that if he does go through, if the deal does go through and Elon Musk takes over Twitter, then I would expect that
so I pulled
situations like ours would be corrected. Well, we'll see.
I pulled up the Onion from September 13th, 2001.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
You're going way back now.
That's when I was reading it a
And
lot.
this one actually, I kind of think it's funny. Guy's Gone Wild, and it's a fat dude pulling his shirt up with stars over his nipples.
Yeah.
Other than that, it is not particularly funny in my
That sucker
opinion.
Jesus has forgiven me for some pretty bad sins.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Like, and then this article right here, it's just like Congressman admits to sexual relationship. That doesn't even sound like satire.
right.
Yeah.
That's just like,
Not at this point.
I don't even know if it is, to be honest.
They were
Like, it's
doing
literally just saying Gordon Graham admits to an affair. It's like, okay.
It's kind of like, have you guys been parodying Putin much these days? Like stuff Putin's up to and Putin like eating ice cream and all that crap.
Mostly Biden, not so much Biden.
Yeah, not so much food.
Yeah, that I got one here from the Onion in 2001. Starving bandaged bin Laden offers U.S. one last chance to surrender. And I mean, that was, to me, it was like crying. And I was working at Ground Zero at that period of my life, like smelling the wreckage, whatever it was, the bodies or the and it was still hilarious because it wasn't hateful. I mean, they're not doing it to hurt people.
Right.
It's like you gotta enjoy life, even the chaos. And soldiers will tell you that too. In the middle of the heat of the battle, you still gotta find humor in like some of the craziest stuff. I guess it's because it's lacking. The argument is that it's lacking context when it's just like a post with no I don't know, what is it on Twitter? There's like no picture or.
But if that were the case, then why wouldn't they conduct an actual reasonable, scientifically done analysis of the headlines as they're actually written, rather than butchering them and then claiming that because they know?
I just got to point out real quick. I had to frantically click away from The Onion because back in 2000 they had a racial slur on their front page for like 4 days as part of one of their jokes.
Yeah, they set the precedent, man.
I'm glad I changed the
maybe
camera
they
shot.
were a bit more edgy back then. I don't know. I was like, oh, we can't show that.
It was the Wild West, for better or worse. I don't think that it's bad these days. Like, people call it a dystopia and stuff. I just think it's always been this crazy, and now the curtain's been pulled back and we can see the inner workings of the beast.
I think that when they are accusing you of basically hollowing this out and using it as a skin suit, all they're doing is projecting. Because this is what we see them doing with every single institution they touch. That's all they ever do. And they're talking about how you're like conveying a political message but trying to do it with comedy. They're trying and failing to do this with people like Colbert and The Onion. They're doing it incredibly poorly because they have no self-reflection, they have no humility, they can never be wrong. And those are things that are required. You need to be able to make fun of yourself because, if you make fun of yourself, you'll never run out of material.
Right.
They cannot do it, but they're trying. I think they're really jealous of what you're doing at the Babylon Bee. That's kind of what
possible.
I come up
Well, I
with.
think you undermine them.
Yeah.
They'd actually make fun of us a little bit. They were kind of like, without naming us, they were making jokes about how they'd been suspended on Twitter and this is their last tweet, they can no longer tweet and they're tweeting that, so they were kind of ironically tweet.
What's the joke?
The joke was that we were, I guess, like putting it on that we were being suppressed but we still are on Twitter and we can still tweet if we want to or something like that. The joke was that we're faking it. I don't know. It wasn't really abundantly clear. It wasn't abundantly clear. And no one got it because no one knew what they were referring to.
Exactly.
Like their audience has no familiarity with what's going on with us
Right.
Twitter. So it's just kind of like it got no engagement, no reaction.
Yeah.
Well, and so, Lydia, you made a really good point about projection, and this is something I kind of want to talk about for a moment here. When I write a joke or someone pitches a joke to me for Freedom Tunes, or I write a rough concept that I want to shop around to friends, nobody goes, I like the political point you're making, you should make that one. It's like they'll either go, I don't like that one, or, oh, that's funny, you should do it, right? So people will still discern whether something is funny or not, even if they agree with it politically. And I know that I've spoken with people at Babylon Bee who have told me that the headlines will get shot down all the time, and then you try to come up with the one that's funniest. And so what they don't realize is when we're writing jokes, we're not sitting down going, how are we going to get them? Like, how are we going to get the other side? It's just something comes to your mind that you think is funny, and then you end up producing it. But that's not how they write their humor.
No, and that, by the way,
they think we're doing what they're doing.
Real quick, I just pulled up the Babylon Bee, and the first thing I see is Nancy Pelosi recommends avoiding paying at the pump by becoming a millionaire through insider trading.
Oh my gosh.
That's really good.
That's awesome.
And even the left should find that funny. Everyone knows Nancy Pelosi is like that Pelosi's stock tracker.
January 6th, the musical.
Right.
I need to watch this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Did you? What were you
Well, what I was going to say is, the only consideration when you're writing a headline, you're pitching a headline is it funny? It's not like, oh, does it make the point that we want to make? Well, that's really secondary to is it funny? It's got to be funny first. You got to lead with that. And where they want to get your head, because this is the criticism that we have, is that we've engaged in hateful conduct with the Rachel Levine joke, right? They want you thinking to yourself, am I making fun of someone who's beneath me? Am I punching down at someone who's marginalized and oppressed while I'm privileged?
That person in a very high position of government.
The white male high-ranking government official. Am I punching down at that person, right? But that's where they want your head at. They want you thinking in those terms. I'm like, I'm not sexist or racist. I don't think people are beneath me. Like, imagine thinking to yourself, you know what? I shouldn't joke about those people. They're beneath me. They're beneath me.
Yeah.
That's so condescending. Like, we should be able to joke about each other indiscriminately, right? So having to put your head in that space, I think, is really unhealthy. But that's where their comedy writers are at. They're like, oh, I'm a white male with privilege writing jokes. I've got to be very careful about all the people I could be punching down at.
Yeah, I can't stand it when
we're working on a video game, and in the video game, characters can be randomly generated as any race, and there's going to be a character customization menu. And so we made the joke, like, if we made an anti-racist mode that took all of the left's ideology and applied it to the racialization of the characters in this game, like, it really helps you understand just how racist they are.
Yeah.
Like, what if their view of people's race was applied to a video game, actually quantified,
the game would be banned.
The game would be banned instantly because you'd be like...
It'd be racist.
Well, the idea is like, if we removed the stereotypes or inverted them, it exposes just how racist they really are. Like the idea that white people are privileged and have all these special benefits. If you actually enacted that in the game, then characters based on the race you choose for your character would have different stats right away. It's already like, can they jump higher, not jump higher? I'm not going to get into how awfully racist it would be, but we could not apply anti-racism to the game because it's equally as racist as being just stereotypically racist.
Right. And they want you to think of the world in those terms when you're writing jokes. It's like, well, can't joke about women. Women are beneath me. They're beneath me on the power structure because I'm a man. It's like, come on,
Yeah, I got pushed to think that I was better than other people because of my skin color. It was disgusting. I don't know how to defend or even to respond to that. Like, I see people's eyeballs were like brains floating in meat sacks. I don't know. Obviously, skin tone has some value.
They literally will say to you, though, they're like, Ian, accept that as a white person, you are better than other people. Why don't you do it? And you're like, no, no.
I want to help people, and I'm not going to stop helping a certain kind of person or like a certain color of person or a certain height of person. I'm not going to stop.
But the thing is, too, it's like, how are we punching down, by the way, making jokes? Like you mentioned, this is a high-ranking government official or whatever, but these ideas that we make fun of, if we're making fun of, progressive gender ideology, that's coming from all the biggest corporations, the universities, the government officials, it's coming from everywhere, media and entertainment. It's being shoved down your throat from the top down, and God forbid you make a joke about it. You're punching down on the marginalized and the oppressed. If people can silence you and punish you and deplatform you for merely joking about them, do they really lack power? Are they really marginalized? Right. Are you really in a position of power over them? I don't think so. You have to actually control what you say in order to not be punished by them. They're the ones in the position of power in that situation.
There's actually
That's a good point.
What's that quote? If you want to know who holds the power in society, look at to who you can't criticize.
That was a Nazi who said that.
What was that?
It was a neo-Nazi who wrote that.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, that's a neo-Nazi quote.
It doesn't mean it's wrong.
Whenever people are in power.
And I think it's a really bad quote, too. Because, the idea that because you can't criticize someone means they have power over you is just not true either.
Well,
that's literally not true.
I think that does indicate that. How do you think it doesn't?
Like a disabled person, like a child with leukemia, doesn't have any power over your life, Ian.
But you can't criticize them.
Like it's not okay to go out there smack talking a bunch of like.
It is okay.
A child who's dying of cancer. You don't criticize them because it's just not cool.
But if you're part of a protected group and everyone is going to come to your defense and make sure that you don't have a job anymore, if you make fun of someone who's in that protected group, then them with that group at their back, they have all the power. And
but it's
you're
a
the
political
one who's
faction, not the victim group they're using. You know what I mean?
You're saying cancel culture? See, that's actually a Voltaire quote.
This
wasn't a Nazi.
No, it was falsely attributed to Voltaire.
Yeah, because people are trying to I can't stand this stuff they do because they're trying to talk about the Jews and they try to manipulate their way into getting people like you, Ian, to use their quotes.
Well, ask Cora about it.
We as a society don't like it when you criticize the dead. The recently deceased. We like to go to funerals and be like, the dead person has no power over you, but you can't criticize them. Okay, they're not alive, you say. Living people, sure. A child who's a burn victim saying that was a disgusting thing you just did. People are going to be like, dude, you need to chill out. That's
the kid can't do anything to you. It's the people. If you criticize someone,
political faction.
Other people like cancel culture will raise up. But if you criticize someone to their face and something bad can happen to you, that means that they have some sort of power over you.
I do think that it's true that when people get into power, they become very sensitive and touchy. There's a reason there's a court jester making fun of the king. It's the people in power bristle at being mocked. They can't bear to be mocked. They can't bear to be ridiculed. And so they're very likely, especially the more authoritarian they lean, they're more likely to clamp down on speech to prevent that so they don't look bad. I mean, look at North Korea, for example. You can't make certain jokes.
And you have to call him dear leader. You can't even just call him Kim Jong-un. I mean, you got to call him the dear leader.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're not on a first name basis?
Kim,
the dear leader.
I call him Un personally, but
Un.
Yeah, he's just a buddy of mine.
Yeah, so it's one of the exercises of power. One of the exercises of power is to make sure that people can't criticize you. It's to retain the power by shielding yourself from criticism and mockery. And so I think there's legitimacy to it from that angle at least.
I think when it comes to the U.S. and it comes to censorship, they don't have power over us. They control the systems they control, and we've given them the power because we use their systems. We adhere to it.
Yeah.
But look at what's been happening over the past few years. Look, a lot of companies tried launching and the machine tried crushing them. Gab was smacked around a bit by the big tech companies. But in the end, they couldn't win. And now you've got Rumble is taking off, massive support, because finally there are people who are just like, I can't take it anymore. Yeah. So Rumble's doing cloud infrastructure. They're supporting Truth Social, which has massive engagement. You've got the Rumble video player. You've got the launch of parallel economy payment processing services. It's all starting to happen.
Is this an ad? Are we doing an ad read now?
No.
Well,
but it is happening.
When you say that we've given them power, I agree with that. I mean, when people ask me like, well, you talk about speaking boldly, speaking the truth boldly, whatever, saying what you think. What if I do that and I lose my job? I'm like, well, why do you think you'd lose your job? Because you'd be an outlier if you spoke your mind, right? Well, why are you an outlier? Well, because everyone else is self-censoring. Everyone else is self-censoring. You probably work in a company where half the people agree with you, but they're afraid to speak their mind. And I think when we self-censor, we're doing the tyrant's work for him and giving them power they shouldn't have.
I just, for whatever reason, cared substantially less than other people. I remember when I was working for the ABC company, I would just say it. Somebody would have something on their desk, I'd be like, oh, that's wrong, by the way. And they'd be like, huh? And I'd be like, here, let me show you. And I'd here's why your feminist weird pay gap thing is not true. And they would get really angry about it.
There's a value to discerning, to know when to speak. Because if you're the only one that stands up and says it, you might get the hammer come down like that. But if you can coordinate a bunch of people to uprise, then you get a letter to the editor from 60 people will sign it. And it's I can't afford to lose my employees.
What's that Breitbart quote about the fire? I don't know. I don't remember exactly what he said. Something like walk towards the fire. I can't remember exactly what he said, but someone either created a derivative version of it, and it was something like, people are scared. They see the fire. They're scared. They're told if you go near it, it'll burn you. But then those who are actually brave enough to jump through it see on the other side is freedom.
It says walk toward the fire. Don't worry about what they call you. All those things are set against you because they want you to stop in your tracks. But if you keep going, you're sending a message to the people who are rooting for you. Who are agreeing with you. The message is that they can do it too. Yep. And also, if you stop and stand in a fire, you get burned. But if you run through it, you're not going to feel the heat.
That's what I was talking with someone about it, and somebody else I was talking to took that quote, and the version they said to me was basically we all see this fire and we know it burns, we know it's scary, so everyone's just staying back from it, but they're being singed by the heat. Some people are brave enough to run towards it, jump through it. On the other side is a beach. People are celebrating, having a good time. And so for me, it was never hard because people want to push this nonsense stuff. I just don't care. I've dealt with hardship, and I'm just you can't take anything from me. You can fire me, you can boot me out. What's my worst case scenario? I'm chilling, man. I'll go skate. Skateboarders, we've always just wanted to hang out, sleep under a tree, go skate, cram ourselves in a single bedroom apartment. So you got no leverage here, buddy. But now, there's a community being built on the other side of that fire. There's the Babylon Bee. There's new infrastructure that's coming. And if you just say enough, don't know, don't care, you will be supported. James O'Keefe, he gives jobs to the whistleblowers. He raises money for the whistleblowers, and people donate to the whistleblowers. They're not left high and dry. He keeps supporting to make sure that they're not left holding an empty bag. And as this faction or whatever, people who believe in freedom, keeps expanding, growing, and gaining more power and access, there's more opportunity for more people to speak up because you won't be left behind.
What do you guys think about mean jokes? Comedy, I guess I'll ask you particularly because you're here, Seth, but what do you think about the difference between jokes that are that have a butt to the joke, like a person or a type of person, versus other forms of comedy, a funny saying or something?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, what we do, satirical comedy is meant to be, it's meant to make you laugh, but also make you think. It's more there's supposed to be in some way that it cuts you, makes you sting, but for a healing purpose, right? So it's more like a surgeon's scalpel that's intended for the purpose of removing something bad so that it heals better than it was to begin with.
Like a vaccine.
Rather than, like a vaccine. There you go. Yeah, for children.
So
so it's, I think that
jokes are fun.
Generally the idea that the jokes are mean, because we're often accused of being mean and being cruel with our jokes, and well, maybe you're looking at it the wrong way. Jokes, you can take it that way, I guess. You can be offended by it. You can get really upset about it. Are you talking about a joke that's just calling somebody fat or something like that, where there's no redemptive purpose to it, and it's not wit meted to moral concern or something like that, where you're trying to make a point? I'm asking. Are you talking about something that's just mean to be mean-spirited?
Yeah. Or let's say what you're saying, like you use someone's fault to make a greater point. Mm-hmm. I personally, I mean, I'm not really into like, this guy's a dog and here's why. And it's like, look at all the 5 ugly things about that guy. And then people are like, watch him fall down on a banana peel.
No, I see more. I see like a moral reason to do comedy that is like, that attacks, but more ideas than people. You know, it's like ridiculing bad ideas. It's going after them and trying to tear them down so that they're not like as appealing as they were. And imagine how much better off we'd be, by the way, if more comedians were doing that. You have all these bad ideas that are infecting children's minds. You know, we got like high depression rates and suicide rates and you know, 10-year-olds transitioning and wanting to get on puberty blocking hormones and all this stuff. Imagine if comedians were doing a better job mocking the insanity of all of this and making it less appealing. Instead, you've got everybody promoting this stuff like it's great, and you're not even allowed to make fun of it, or it's hate speech. You know, like comedy can play a role in that kind of stuff by mocking bad ideas that are harmful for society.
I want to show you this. We'll pull this video real quick. I'm not going to play the video, but this is a video called Open Night. It used to be called Open Night Massacre. Open Mic. Now it's called Open Mic Night Becomes a Massacre When Liberal Arts Hecklers Take Over. This caused chaos at Fusion. So
this is several years old.
This is 2015, and this is back when I worked for Fusion. This came out, and I said, this is one of your best videos, because I was talking to the higher-ups and how they can get their videos to get more traffic because they were struggling. And I was like, this one's big. Basically, it's a stand-up comedian. No matter what he says, they boo him and call him racist or offensive. And then he's like, no, I feel like I can't say anything. And they're like, no, it's a free speech zone. And then they boo him and throw tomatoes at him. This one pissed off the entire staff. They said it was racist. And then the higher-ups were like, why did we make a video insulting our audience? And then I was like, dude, you guys, this is like the only funny video you have.
Right.
Then they did eventually go on to make celebrity mockery videos, which also was just like general pop culture humor, which was fine. But at the time, this was relevant, politically savvy, and it was funny. And it got 500,000 views in a couple days. And I was like, it's because it's good and people like it and it's funny. And they were like, nope, it's insulting our audience. We can't have that.
Ian, you were sort of asking this question about making fun of people. And it's honestly a good one because it's something I've wrestled with too. And I would tend to agree with you that you want to attack ideas more so. I do think sometimes there's still room to make fun of people, but I find that what tends to be most cruel about our society is what we choose to affirm rather than what we choose to ridicule. So we will let people believe that they're capable of doing something they're not capable of, and then just watch them get hurt. And I think that's a lot more cruel than just being blunt with them and saying, no, absolutely not. You can't do that.
You're gonna continue?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, for example, we've talked about this before, but on American Idol, what they would often do is tell someone who couldn't sing at all that they were a wonderful performer and that they should sing in front of the judges, and then they would, and it would be unbelievally humiliating for them.
They wouldn't tell them you're the best. They would say,
but they would pass them on to the next round, even though they knew they couldn't sing. Now, what would be? Now, I'm not saying if you knew that person personally, the best approach would be to make fun of them. Like, I think it's a case by case basis whether humor is the best approach, but I think it would be less cruel if someone came to you and saying that way to poke a little fun at them than to say, oh, no, you're great. Go on live television and sing in front of everyone. But our society is really committed to doing the latter in virtually all circumstances where we encounter that problem.
It's the exact same reason why somebody will have spinach stuck in their teeth and no one will tell them.
Oh, you got to tell them. Tell them.
Yeah.
I never understood that. I never understood that. I see someone and they got like a thing on their teeth. They're like, hey, you got something on your teeth. They go, oh, thanks.
Tell anyone, yeah.
Like, but people don't want to do it. They're like, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, shout out to Will. He was on Chamberlain, and I think he had chocolate on his face. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice. He has a cut on his face. I didn't know. So I didn't say anything. But sorry, Will. Next time I'll call it out.
It was like chocolate or something.
One of the things I was thinking about when you were talking is obesity. Because people used to tell fat jokes. And that's like, I think obesity isn't the person. It's the idea. It's the behavior that you can eat whatever you want and that you don't have to fast and that you can eat sugar and that fat's bad, sugar's good. So it's these ideas. You can poke fun at the ideas, maybe not at the person by name and showing their body, but I mean, how do you poke fun at the idea of obesity without showing someone. I mean, you could have a computer generated
Yeah,
person.
but good comedians make fun of themselves. You know, you had like, you know, Chris Farley would make jokes at his own expense all the time, you know,
Fat
for
guy
being
in a little
overweight.
coat.
Fat guy in a little coat, right? You know, and it's funny, and he's willing to laugh at himself about it.
Yeah.
And we've lost that. We've lost that ability to be able to say, you know what? I'm not perfect. There are actually things about me that are worth making fun of and laughing about, and they're flaws. And it's okay to recognize them as flaws and like laugh about it and have a sense of humor about it, rather than being so uptight. Like, oh, if someone makes fun of my physical appearance, you know, I'm distraught. I'm destroyed, and I can never recover from that. You know, we're by creating safe spaces, we're harming people by never exposing them to even jokes that like confront them with their flaws.
I think the one of the big splits that happens in the culture war between left and right has a lot to do with participation trophy parents versus parents who didn't do that.
Right.
So it feels like one of the big things that divides left and right. The left, they're entitled, but they're also very soft. They need safe spaces, trigger warnings. When someone says a mean word, they think it's violence because quite literally they've never been insulted before. I mean, imagine this: you grow up in a town or whatever with participation trophy parents, snowplow parents who bulldoze every obstacle. No one's allowed to say mean words. You've never been insulted in your life, let alone never had someone flick your ear. All of a sudden, now you're an adult. You go on Twitter and someone goes, "You're dumb," and they go, "It's the first time I've ever felt this pain. Why are you calling me dumb?" It's like, I've been spit on and shot at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think it's an argument for, you know, bullying and meanness and cruelness are good things. It's more of an argument that like you don't build resilience of character if you don't face challenges, and you're not like, and you're not having to deal with the fact that, you know, you're not perfect and not everybody's going to be nice to you. You know, and you can't expect that everybody's going to be nice to you, and you can't require that everyone treat you perfectly in order for you to be like healthy mentally. Like that's not a good place for anybody to be in, especially as kids.
It's ego.
Yeah.
But I think also just going back to the question, because we're talking about obesity here, and you asked about using humor with that. I think the approach is using humor, like you said, to kind of toughen people up can work, but then it can have the reverse effect. So, for example, if you have somebody claiming you're healthy at all sizes, that's just ridiculous, and you need to make fun of it, because if people believe that, they're going to end up indulging in foods they shouldn't eat. They'll get overweight, and then they'll never lose the weight because they'll be able to justify it to themselves, right? They'll end up being miserable. So I think it's very good to make fun of that idea. But then like pointing at a specific person who's overweight and just ripping on them for being overweight, well, they're probably not going to lose weight if you do that, because you're reinforcing in their mind this idea that like they're just fat and gross and
it's actually a good example to bring that up, because look at all these shows like Eric Cartman in South Park, or Homer Simpson, or Peter Griffin. You know, like the punchline, and there's a punchline in every episode that has to do with their weight, right? Like their physical characteristics. And it's funny, you know, the jokes about Homer eats donuts all the time. You know, he's lazy. He sleeps at his workstation. And you know,
father.
When he had the drinking bird hitting the Y on the keyboard,
right?
That was great.
He's the villain. I actually tweeted that out. Homer Simpson's a villain, and people were like, "No." It's like, dude, don't use that as a role model. That guy beat his kid. He's severely overweight.
He was severely abusive to his kid.
He strangled his son.
Over and over again. Bart, you know, is a devastation because of his poor parenting.
Yeah.
You know,
I blame Homer.
That's true.
Yeah, I blame Abe, but I blame Homer.
Yeah.
I think the worst cartoon character is probably Peggy Hill. You ever watch King of the Hill? That woman is sociopath. Like textbook. Like narcissistic sociopath. The way she like neglects her family and is very like she doesn't hear what people are saying.
She's got to be on some psychoactive crap, like some sort of
a
weird
cartoon character. I don't know.
Because she's not there. She's not emotionally available. She's always like, just, okay.
She doesn't speak Spanish, but claims she does. Like, she's like a narcissistic, borderline personality disorder, histrionic, whatever. Yeah, crazy. But yeah, you make a good point. Homer would strangle his son, and his son would lash out and act, you know, inappropriately, and it's probably because his dad beat him.
It was probably because his father's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Like, but it's so funny because like the fact that Homer's like, I love The Simpsons, by the way. I love the early seasons, but the fact that he's like literally an alcoholic is just played for laughs. And I don't think he's ever called an alcoholic, really.
Right.
But it's just like, no, the man is literally an alcoholic who beats his child.
Who falls asleep
but
at
then
his
at
job
the end of the
nuclear
episode, you root for him. It's like, this is a genuinely horrible person.
Frank Grimes didn't.
No, it's true. Frank Grimes is the one character with any sense on the show,
And then he ended
that's
up
why
grabbing the power cables. Do you remember that one? He's like, I don't need to wear gloves. I'm Homer Simpson.
a
And
really
then
dark episode. Yeah.
Yeah, that show, man. Yeah, but early episodes, they were edgy. It was funny.
And that's
kinda
part of
crazy.
the point too. Like part of the point is Homer is terrible. Like that's
But
part of
isn't
the joke.
Isn't it interesting how shows back in the day were like a wholesome family dealing with like, issues with their kid growing up. And then slowly over time, shows became more and more dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. Then you ended up with like Married with Children, which was one of the most, I think it was the highest rated sitcom at the time.
We
when it
weren't
was on
allowed
the
to
air.
watch
That was
it.
about the same time that The Simpsons came on too. It was early
Late
90s,
80s,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
early
late 80s.
I
early 90s.
really, really despised Married with Children because I couldn't stand the fact that they were all just awful people.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it was that Al lost everything. Like he would always lose. And I'm like, I want to root for someone, but I guess the idea is he's a bad person, so he doesn't deserve it or something. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I thought Peggy was good. She was an idiot, but like, is it because she kept like just supporting Al's doofusness that she was also piss poor?
There's one episode I liked, and it was where finally, Al Bundy punches a guy, and then it ends with him saying they won a lawsuit. Him with Peggy, they're loving and laughing with each other, and he says, I sued him for hurting my fist on his face. And I guess the point was it's always backwards or something. Mm-hmm. But that was the one where I was like, he won and his wife loved him. And I was like, that's the one I can remember. Mm-hmm. All the rest of them are just like the family everybody hates each other. And I don't know, I wouldn't want to watch it.
Well, we see this a lot, but there's a lot of comedy that just gets way too mean-spirited and the characters all hate each other. There's this joke that basically every television show does because they think it's like edgy and interesting, but almost all of these shows have moments where for a gag, one of the characters ends up betraying another character who they're supposed to be friends with or who's a family member. It's like, okay, that was somewhat funny for that one joke, but you've totally undermined the relationship between the characters. And so many shows are willing to sell out character development like that for a punchline.
Right.
You know what show's actually really good though is It's Always Sunny.
Oh yeah.
Those people are just deeply narcissistic and just very, very bad people. And it's great. I haven't watched the later episodes though, but earlier seasons were just absolutely fantastic.
Well, and I wonder if they just keep ramping it up, right? Because that's kind of what people would say about Seinfeld. Like in Seinfeld, they're all really bad, and then It's Always Sunny takes it to the next level, and then who knows, 5-10 years from now, it's going to be even more insane and evil.
How do you get more insane than It's Always Sunny?
Yeah.
Like the episode where they became crack addicts.
I'm sure they said the same thing about Seinfeld at the time.
I know.
How do you get worse than airline food, man? How are we gonna, how are we gonna get past that?
Yeah, but now it feels like modern shows are getting scared of being that edgy. You know what I mean?
It'd be like It's Always Dark in Philadelphia, and then it would be just showing the street violence right now.
Yeah,
it's not funny.
Didn't It's Always Sunny remove some episodes or something?
Yeah, I think they did.
I don't know.
Yeah, they removed some
Cringe.
offensive episodes.
Well, so there's another thing that happens too. It's an interesting phenomenon in media, but when the economy is doing poorly, comedy tends to be more popular because people want an escape. They want something funny. And so I also wonder if maybe dark comedy becomes more popular when things are going well, but when things are difficult, people don't want dark comedy as much because they're already seeing some of the bleakness of reality.
Yeah, that's why I don't watch horror movies, because reality is horrifying enough when I think about the economy. And
No, horror's my favorite genre, but it's just been lacking.
It's terrible.
Yeah, they've
all
just.
the time.
I loved the campy B horror movies of the 80s.
I like Dr. Sleep.
That was
my
good.
last
Yeah,
favorite.
that was a good one. Yeah,
that's a sequel, right?
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
that sequel for?
The Shining.
The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Stephen King's kind of a weird guy, though. He writes about kids in really creepy ways.
Yeah, I wish you weren't so
Yeah.
creepy.
That's a weird thing. I don't think people understand that. There was a joke in American Dad where they find a script for The Fast and the Furious or something, and then they realize that in it there's a bunch of gay erotica, and so they take it out, and they're like, that can't be in there. And then they bring it to the studio, and they're like, oh, great. Hey, wait a minute. Where's the gay erotica? They're like, normally that's supposed to be in there. And they're like, what? So I think that's a play on Stephen King, because a bunch of his books and stories, there's really bad stuff in there. And they're like, this is a great story. Let's take that really offensive stuff
in the story
out.
Yeah.
I think maybe you were
I'm
the one
not
who told
going
me
to.
that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Jeez. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about it online,
Oh,
but
good.
that's
He writes a
some
graphic
twisted-
graphic section about children doing adult things. We'll
Yep,
put it
yep.
and for no reason. Just
Right.
literally, he's like, I'm now going to write this, and it's going to be in the book. And you're like,
creepy.
why?
Why is that?
He
FBI
also
not knocking
he
on your
also
door?
literally wrote a story that's just about a dude recalling
No good.
bad things happening to him. Let's
Yeah.
put it and in extreme detail. Like, wow. That's what I had a Stephen King book because I when Secret Window came out, I was like, I liked it. And then I was like, I'd be interested. I heard that the story was actually a little different. So I got the book that had the collection in it, and I'm like, let's start reading it. And then I just threw the book, and I was like, whoa, what is wrong with that man? Yeah, like
Twisted horror. They say horror, it's okay. Like violence is fine. Nudity, fine. But as soon as it's like graphic sex on kids, not fine. Still horrifying, but not. It's a little too close to home. What is it? Because they think it's brainwashing people and making them more towards that. Like horror movies making people more violent.
I don't know. I mean, you could definitely have a debate about whether or not that's healthy entertainment, I guess, even with just straight horror movies, though. I mean, it's never been my favorite genre. I always just feel weird watching people, like, for entertainment, like, slaughter each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, if it's a context like war, if it's Braveheart, and they're, like, carving each other up on the battlefield, it's different than, like, a chainsaw massacre.
Yes, okay. So and that's a really important point, right? Context matters. So in Band of Brothers, there's a lot of violence, but there has to be because they're trying to give you an accurate depiction of the Second World War.
Right.
That's not the same as we're just going to have gratuitous violence because we love violence.
We're going to go to Super Chats. If you have not already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com and become a member because we're going to have that not-so-family-friendly, uncensored episode coming up at 11 p.m. tonight. Now we will read your Super Chats. Danibus X says, encourage your followers to contact their senators to attach an amendment to repeal the Hughes Amendment to the new gun control bill. What does that one do? What's the Hughes Amendment?
Don't know.
How about every single person just calls your senator or congressman nonstop saying, do not sign on to this bill.
Don't organize it a specific time on a specific day, and then repeat that. It's super powerful.
Can you call them personally? Like if you called their personal, is that allowed?
I doubt it.
I think you can only call their office.
I mean, it might be considered harassment if you call their home phone or something.
Would it be?
I would feel like I'm getting harassed if people are calling my home phone.
Joshua Harrison says leftists just stormed the Wisconsin state capitol over abortion rights. Never forget 622.
That's right.
I saw that.
Never
I saw
forget.
that.
They went inside?
Yep.
Yeah.
Filled it up.
Yep. It was an insurrection.
It really was.
Actually, insurrection. Yeah. 529. Yeah. Do you know? You remember the 529 insurrection? You didn't forget, did you?
Didn't forget.
529. That's right.
Never
forget. Falcon Laser says, get Tulsi Gabbard on after the Mines Festival. I'll ask. We're going to be on a panel together. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, this Saturday in New York City, festival.minds.com, we're going to be speaking. It's going to be a really awesome event, and I'm going to be on a panel. I think it's Tulsi, right?
I think
James O'Keefe, Tulsi, me, Ben Burgess, and it's going to be comedy. It's going to be great. There's going to be some stand-up. Going to be a lot of people there. Seth, you're going to be there, I think.
I'll be there too. Yeah,
that's right.
It's a great lineup.
Yeah, it's a big theater. It's a
nice
Beacon
venue.
Theater.
Yeah, Beacon
Huge.
Theater, New York.
Yeah, festival.minds.com. Get your tickets, and there's even like a free ticket form if you're hurting and you really want to go because we want to get people to show up. All right, let's see what we got. Okay. Rogel Dorn says, why not just recall the rhinos, get them out of office? Senators can't be recalled. Sorry. They get in for 6 years, they sit there, and then they just spit in your face.
There's your problem.
Yep. The KL Tanker says, went to buy my first handgun in California today, wearing my inflation is theft shirt. Gonna go back tomorrow to use the range and officially buy it, thinking about wearing my if you trust the government shirt, wearechange.org. Very good shirts, by the way. All right. Smokey Joe says, hey, Tim, nearly everyone accepts some degree of limits on speech, including you and I. So how do you rationalize being a 2A absolutist while being a 1A relativist? Appreciate y'all. Love you, Seamus.
Good question.
Oh,
Because the First Amendment, first of all, it covers a variety of things. And we're trying to understand what it means that the right to free speech shall not be infringed, right? What is free speech referring to? The expression of your ideas and politics should not be infringed by the government. That doesn't mean you can orchestrate crime. That's not. Now, there's a challenge there, and I've brought this up. Because if the government just makes certain things crimes, then they can continually infringe upon your right to express your political opinions. So I've often said I'm not entirely sure there can be limits on free speech in that case. And perhaps as many other 1A absolutists or free speech absolutists have said, only the direct action itself should be the crime. There's a good point there. As for the right to keep and bear arms, it says, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. It exists. There it is. And arms refers to the same weapons the government has. That's it. We know exactly what they mean. We know what they meant when they wrote it. So the issue, I suppose, is they're two different things. I don't know. You guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, thinking of speech and action, the difference between like they go, no, it's only illegal if you do the action. Speech is a form of action. It requires you to make your body act to make the speech. And then if you record it, especially, that's some big action. So it's, you can definitely speak things, that's a form of.
I think one way to put it is there are questions around the legality of orchestrating crime. Being the person who provides the mental capacity for a crime to be carried out. Some people have the brute force and the strength or the willingness to take action, physical action against another person, but not the wherewithal or mental capacity. And then you serving as a vehicle to drive people or enable them to do it. There's a question there. Keeping a gun, you've committed no crime. The fact that I have a gun does not hurt anybody, does not infringe on anyone else's rights. It is not a threat to anybody. I have done nothing wrong.
In what context are we talking about free speech rights, though? Are we talking about them on like YouTube, social media?
In public. The Constitution, can the government infringe upon?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because on YouTube, I think of this a lot, like daily. What's free speech on YouTube? YouTube's a corporation; they can shut down anyone at any time. And if the government's to come in and say, "No, corporation, you got to do what we say," well, that's kind of fascist of our government to get involved. So, I'm like, what does it mean? What does free speech on the internet even mean? With private companies owning the place.
There was a Supreme Court justice back in an old case going way back in it was Marsh versus Alabama. It had to do with this company town, and it was a privately owned company town. And the question was whether or not you had free speech rights in this town because it's owned by a corporation.
And they said yes.
And they said yes, you do have free speech there because the town is performing all the functions that the government normally would. And so no one's really been successful in taking that argument and moving it to social media. But one of the opinions in that, one of the justices, Justice Black, wrote something about how the more you open up as a private person, the more you open up your property or your business to the public, the more you kind of give up some of your rights to allow for some of theirs to flourish. So they have their own rights, both statutory rights and constitutional rights. And you're allowing them on your platform, your property, or whatever. And so places of public accommodation have to accommodate the statutory and constitutional rights of the people that are there.
Yeah, Twitter.
And that's one of the arguments that was made in that case in particular. And I don't see any reason why that shouldn't apply to social media companies.
Occupy Wall Street famously had a lawsuit. Many people were like, it's Zuccotti Park is private property. And then there was a lawsuit, and the courts were like, but it's open to the public, so protest is allowed. And then they couldn't evict the protesters. They eventually evicted the protesters on sanitation grounds or something like that. But this is why the Chase Plaza, about a block away, shut down to the public because they didn't want Occupy Wall Street taking over their public plaza, privately owned.
Right.
The occupiers also went beneath the Deutsche Bank building, which was another privately owned public space because they knew they were legally allowed to now occupy these spaces. That's how it works. I see Twitter as being no different. All right. Gadsden says, Tim, you talk about national divorce, civil war all the time. I wrote a book about exactly that. Can I send a copy of it to your P.O. box? Yes. It's called National Divorce, A Practical Plan to Prevent Civil War. It's available on Amazon as well. Interesting.
Very cool.
We have paused the fan mail for the time being. I'm not sure if sending something to the P.O. box will get through or not, but you're welcome to send it.
All right. Butter Warrior says, Tim, thank you for being liberal, for I am conservative. Seamus, thank you for being pious, for I am on the road. And my Jesus-looking man, I drank gin and tonic, and I had clairvoyance. My gal, stay you.
Oh.
Well, all right.
I like that.
Sweet.
Hugh Denton says, Seamus got it. Even liberals don't believe these common sense gun laws will solve anything. It's all incremental steps towards a gun-free utopia.
Yeah, and don't you think it should be mandated if you're trying to push for legislation after a tragedy to explain how that legislation would have prevented what just happened?
Right.
But they don't, because that's not their goal. Their goal is to get your guns.
It'll affect law-abiding people, and there were already laws in place that should have stopped that from happening. That didn't.
Exactly.
All right, Minor says, Tim, I've been wondering for a while, why don't you use music at the start when the show goes live? It would give an audible clue that it started. Sure, we could do that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, for a while we would just go live and then, go live, but then YouTube auto plays an ad for a lot of people. So then many people would miss like the first 30 seconds. So now we wait a minute.
Yeah, gotta
So
miss
we
a guy.
can do that, I suppose. Jason Takes says, my wife had our second daughter this morning, named her Lydia in part because of how sweet and awesome Sour Patch Lids is.
I'm a
Well,
second
you're
daughter.
the
If only she knew how you
tiebreaker
really
anyway.
were.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
That's
Okay,
cool.
shut up, Seamus. I'm a second daughter. That makes me so happy. That's adorable. Congratulations.
That is wonderful, though.
Russell says, you need to push for a recall for all these rhinos, Tim. Let's not wait for the next election. Senators can't be recalled. How amazing is that? Members of Congress can
So great.
and should be. So all of those Congress people who are voting for this stuff, recall them. All right. Frederick Borman says, hello, Tim and crew. I'm once again asking you to invite Russian libertarian Mikhail Svetov. You can reach him on Twitter at @msvetov. He's very knowledgeable and knows a whole lot about American politics.
Svetov.
Interesting. Is he in America?
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah. A06 says, Tim, could you look up the court case Caniglia v. Strom? The Supreme Court already voted on it in a 9-0 decision, and it supposedly might already refute red flag laws. Interesting. Really? When was that? Well, let's take a look into it. All right. JD Russell says, I've enjoyed the previous theological discussions on the Members Only show. You guys should have on Joel Richardson, author of The Islamic Antichrist. He would bring a unique perspective on current events and biblical prophecy.
Interesting.
You guys at the Babylon Beach should probably just publish lottery numbers at this point. Just be like, sooner or later.
Was that a comment? Did you just read that comment?
No, I'm just saying.
The Babylon Bee, who publish lottery numbers
You know
under the
what?
guise of satire.
Here, I'll say it right now, right here. If you become a premium subscriber today, we'll publish lottery numbers just for you. Premium
go.
subscribers only. Gotta
Well,
sign
all
up.
right.
We'll give you the fortune numbers.
All right. Nate Wotring says, Tim, you moved to the middle of nowhere in West Virginia, yet you compare the weather of Miami to West Virginia. Dude, Florida's so much bigger than Miami. LOL. Yeah, all of Florida is hot, though. I know Miami is, like, particularly bad.
The southernest part.
Yeah, like, West Virginia, it's just, you get seasons, you know? It's
Man,
not
it was
that bad.
72 the other night. It was just the perfect
We had, like,
temperature.
3 days.
You know, just do what the snowbirds do. They come down, they're there when it's like cool and nice,
like
and then they
that.
leave for the summer and escape. And
Yeah,
they
it's
go
basically
somewhere
what-
north. They go to the mountains, they go somewhere else.
This is basically what Luke does.
Yeah.
He, like, shows up and everyone's like, I wonder why he's back. And it's like he's migrating,
Yeah.
you know? He's got to fly
Migratory
north.
bird. Yeah, it's true.
Fly south for the winter. All right, let's grab some more of these super chats. Nate Woodworth says, Joni Ernst is my senator. I'm 24. She was the first senator I ever voted for. I'm so mad. I'm looking into what I need to run against her, and I will.
Wow.
Yes.
Do it.
Bravo. Absolutely. Western Canadian Commentary says, Tim, you keep saying it's a choice between Trump or DeSantis, but why not both? Give Trump second term in 24, then DeSantis in 28. Let Trump drain the swamp, then DeSantis brings America into a golden age. Keep up the great work. No, I agree. A Trump-DeSantis ticket? I don't know. What do you think?
Would they work together? Would
I don't know.
Would they want that? You know, they got to be on board with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea how. They have been like photographed at events together, like in recent times, I guess. So
I'm thinking it's going to be DeSantis. Yeah, because like Predict It has DeSantis winning right now. Some polls are coming out.
And I think there are good reasons for that, right? Regardless of whether you want to attribute this to, the deep state stopping Trump or the political establishment not letting him do what he needed to do, we have seen DeSantis effectively govern after COVID hit and after the left tried shutting the entire economy down and started rioting and all the shenanigans they've been up to. We really haven't seen the same from Trump. He's been gone. And when he was in office, he wasn't able to achieve the things he wanted to in those circumstances, whereas DeSantis has been able to. I'm not saying it's the same scenario, but I am saying it's reasonable that people would be more trusting of DeSantis after that.
Brand New Clown World says a simple thing I do in terms of culture jamming is making stickers. All it takes is vinyl sticker paper and a cheap inkjet printer. I go to my local skate park or dive bar and slap on a bare shelf Biden or One Nation controlled by the media sticker. Ah, yes. Yeah, we got criticized, some leftist outlet, because we have proof of gun stickers.
I love it.
Where it's like the proof of vaccination card,
Amazing.
Yeah.
but it says proof of gun, and then it's like write down what gun you had, and they were like, he has fake gun declaration forms or whatever. It's like,
Yeah, someone's real likely to think that's real.
and I don't know about that. They just thought it was like, how dare you? Oh, buh. Whatever.
Second Amendment.
Colby Brown says, Tim, bravo, putting West Virginia Senator on blast. Don't forget McConnell giving in on the debt ceiling and infrastructure leading to inflation. blow up the phone lines and let them know what you think. Yes. But Mitch McConnell is awful. We need better leadership. The Republican Party is the Republican Party. Ugh. A bunch of new populist libertarian types came into the Republican Party because of Donald Trump. And now many of them are just like, I can't believe Mitch McConnell would do this to us.
I don't understand why someone like DeSantis doesn't like inspire more people to like have a backbone like him, you know, to stand, like, look at the response. You know, he's in a conversation right now, and he's head to head or ahead in polls against Trump for like running for president. Well, why? Because he hasn't like been spineless and rolled over and let the left just do whatever. You know, he stands up to them. I just don't see how that's not like replicated. Why is nobody saying, why do people on the right, why do Republicans think that the best thing to do is appease the left when obviously what DeSantis is doing is working?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not even just a question of what DeSantis is doing working, though it obviously does. How can you, A, see what DeSantis is doing, and B, see what like Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney are doing, and go like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna be like those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you've got right now unpredicted DeSantis is beating Trump. And if you've got this narrative that Trump controls the party, but DeSantis is starting to pull ahead in the polls, clearly he's doing something right.
Right.
These Republicans should be like, as you said, emulate DeSantis to win.
Right. Exactly.
Well, you know, maybe they're just not smart people. How about that? All right. The One Free Man says, Tim, there are a lot of wealthy people not doing anything. There are a lot of wealthy people not doing anything. Klaus Schwab and Soros hold our beer. That's right. Yeah, you see, unfortunately, all the rich people who are actually doing stuff and our culture warriors are doing it in the bad ways.
Against us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, it's cool that Elon Musk is trying to buy Twitter, but it would not be difficult for him to start a media organization or invest in someone starting something or to prop up anyone challenging the narrative. He could uncancel people. He could be like, I'll put $10 million towards comedy shows. I will guarantee that the industry exists. That's what I'm talking about. Like, do that. Mm-hmm. We're talking about doing a new kind of award.
There's people doing that, by the way, trying to uncancel. Daily Wire's uncanceled some people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I came to the aid of the libs of TikTok girl, who I won't name here, when she was being doxxed and taken out. So
the Daily Wire, they're building themselves up from the ground up. They're building this big empire. There are people who are already on the top of these big towers who purport to believe in a lot of the same things, who could snap their fingers and
they have resources. Yeah,
they don't do it.
Yeah,
you know, they do some stuff, but I'll tell you, one of the things I've encountered is that a lot of the people who actually have the money don't understand cultural issues, and so they keep approaching things from this tech perspective, where they're like, you know, look, to be honest, like even buying Twitter, I think is great, but I think it shows the worldview of Elon Musk. The solution is buying Twitter. Well, buying Twitter is a nuclear bomb in the culture war, but the issue is you need culture warriors to create culture, share culture, and inspire young people. Mm-hmm. Owning Twitter doesn't necessarily change what's going on.
But at least they'll be allowed to speak on his platform when he's managing it.
Mm-hmm. So it is good. But I hear a lot from people, they're like, if we just build this new platform, and I'm like, that's not changing the culture. Mm-hmm. It's not changing the fact that a large portion of millennials believe these things, you know?
Well, and it also doesn't provide an alternative in the sense that you're not going to have people like the people that are on Twitter right now. You have the full diverse spectrum of like viewpoints represented on Twitter right now. You know, you got people far left, far right, and everybody in between. And if you build an alternative that's like, if Musk were to start an alternative that was like a free speech platform, he's like, hey, come join my free speech platform. How many people on the left are going to join that platform? Do they want a free speech platform where there's moderation, but not for what they consider misinformation or hate speach? Of course not.
Yeah, I think you got to free
they're
the
not gonna
software
go near
code. The only way you can really get free speech is let people build their own networks with the code. It's I can explain it later.
Yeah.
JT says, Tim, don't rent space on billboards. Buy the billboard. Buy it, put up your message, and leave it up forever. Okay. But it's probably just not cost effective.
What if instead of billboards you put shirts on people? You know, you just pay people to wear your shirt that has your message on it.
Just
send them out in large groups or something.
Find a homeless shelter nearby Charleston and give them like 500 shirts of all different sizes of each. Like there's 5,000 shirts, and they're giving away all these shirts that just say, you know, Shelly is trash or whatever. That'd be hilarious. And then they're like, but they're free shirts, and these people really need to wear them. It's like all of a sudden there's No. If they're gonna give it to homeless people, it's got to be something like more political about why are there homeless people in this place in the first place? Why is this place suffering? And then point to the senator who's supposed to be doing right by the people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Then you're getting more political, I guess, though. You could be like, it's their fault I'm here wearing this shirt. Thank them. Bad leadership. All right. Mr. Devilman says Ben Franklin was a boss. While in England during the war as a diplomat, he hired his own private fleet of pirates to hit English supply ships. Wow. That's crazy. Well, good for him, I suppose.
Yeah. Good for Ben.
You know, one of the things that,
awesome.
by the way, on the free speech stuff and Twitter and Musk and all that stuff, one thing that I don't know if you guys have talked about it much here, but I feel like it doesn't get talked enough is the fact that these platforms like Twitter, for example, they give you all the tools you need to decide who you're going to listen to. Like I can mute or block anybody. Yeah. I don't have to see. If you start saying stuff that I don't like, I can stop seeing it without taking away your voice.
It's about taking away your voice. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, but it's like it's just insane. You're right. That's what it's about. But ultimately, it's like the tools are there for you to like if it was really about having a safe space and not being exposed to that stuff, the tools are there to protect yourself right now. So it has to be about taking away your voice.
An issue I've had is if I mute somebody and then someone responds to them, I see the response.
Right.
And the person I muted is tagged in it. And I'm like, I don't want to think about that person. That's why I muted them. So
you got to go on.
Fix that Twitter.
Keep muting everybody.
Mute all the threads where that name is popping up.
Yeah. It can become
or
a lot
put that
of work.
option on.
Yeah.
All right. Ego Litster. The Bee did a great article on our church and baptizing via water slides. Tim, as a member, I'm asking that you buy up all the billboards. Love you all.
Awesome.
Baptizing by water slides.
A lot of people thought that was real. A lot of
really?
people, yeah. Including one of our employees. She now works for us, but she admitted when we hired her that she originally thought that article was real.
Wow. Great.
Yeah.
Well, now Snopes is sounding convincing. Yeah. You need to be taken off the internet.
Yep. Joe Messinic says, dead internet. Alexa will soon be able to read stories as your dead grandma.
Yep.
TechCrunch. Yeah, and I think I was reading that Facebook can take a person's profile and then create an AI chat bot based on their life and knowledge and talk to you like, it's like your grandpa dies.
That's so eerie.
It's going to be a lot
hey,
easier
grandpa, and
to
he'll be
get
like,
guests.
what's up?
Yeah.
I'm a ghost. And you'll be like, whoa.
That's what you'll say to him.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's those algorithms that should be free.
Sounds like you're the AI.
Having that much manipulation over the populace is irksome. I think that's the code that needs to be freed.
Yeah.
For people to have access to it, at least to see what it's doing.
With the Alexa comment, though, is that because Alexa's been listening so much? Is that why it's able to?
Well, they were talking about you can have a custom Alexa voice because I guess it's just based on hearing samples of someone speaking. Alexa will be able to imitate their voice. Who knows how well they'll be able to do it, or it will be able to do it.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Alicia Z. Del Valle says, I think Louis C.K. said that he felt we were actually closer as a society when people mocked each other about race and physical appearance in general. I thought that was kind of funny, LOL. Yeah, I mean, arguably, yes. When people were doing these jokes, we weren't on the verge of tearing each other apart and burning everything to the ground, right?
Well, I think it's a chicken or egg style question. So if you're not close with somebody and they start making offensive jokes about you, you're going to be less likely to laugh, especially if they're an enemy and there's been tension there. But if you're friends with somebody and they poke some fun at you, you're probably going to laugh. They can get away with a lot more. So I think being able to joke about those things is the sign of a very healthy society because the people in the society actually believe that the person poking fun at them doesn't mean them any harm. Today, that's very clearly not the case. And I'm not sure if it's not the case because we can't joke about it. I think it's probably the case just because tensions have been heightened for other reasons, but the lack of humor is certainly a symptom.
All right. Danibus X says the Hughes Amendment banned the manufacture of machine guns for civilian use in 1986. Ah, that one. Yes, we should get rid of that.
Yes.
That's stupid. All right. Young Jav says killer clowns from outer space. That is all I am. That is all I am a gorilla. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Oh, well.
Let's see. Vociferon, Herald of the Winter Mist, says Article 1, Section 27 of the Oregon Constitution states, the people shall have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state, but the military shall be kept in strict subordination to the civil power.
Interesting.
Wow. That's not going too well up there, I suppose.
No.
Matthew Gregor says, check out Saint Philip Neri. He literally hung out with the dregs of Italy, making jokes that were the jokes that were where the punchline was their sin. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
The joke caused them to see the reality of the life they were living.
Wow.
Interesting.
Amos Moses says, gotta move to Oklahoma. We banned red flag laws 2 years ago. Woo! Nebraska sounds pretty nice too.
So is Missouri.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Nolan Buss says, Vosh is currently defending the position that taking kids to drag shows is not bad on Alex Stein's page. This is madness. Bad is good and good is bad. Huh. It's really funny seeing the left come out and defend the drag queen story hour thing. And it's like, it's funny because I saw this leftist journalist post something being like, can we, no, I think it was, they said something like, can we make the distinction between, drag shows that are stripping and drag queens just reading books? And I'm just like, oh yeah, because having a go-go dancer read your kids' books is fine. Like, I'm pretty sure parents would not be okay with that either.
Well, I mean, look, 10 years ago, if someone was a drag queen during their off time and they were let into a school to read a book to children, that would be a controversy. Today, they're doing it in drag, and you're told you have to accept it.
What makes someone a queen? Like a drag queen? Because if I put on a dress, I'd technically be in drag. That's kind of the definition of the phrase.
It's very specific, like full costume, foam hips, big makeup.
That's what makes the queen, the drag queen, is when they put on the makeup and stuff?
I guess. I mean, it's like...
It's like, what is the purpose, And they actually have a stated purpose for what they're doing. It's to
groom kids.
It's to stimulate the queer imagination or something like that in children. And it's like,
that's literally grooming
kids. And this is all over public libraries and schools are signed onto this stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, how do drag queens, whether it's inappropriate, whatever, it's a man dressed as a woman. It's always that way. It's always a man dressed as a woman. How does that do anything but distract from story time? What's the point of story time? Just have the drag queen perform.
The argument they made is that drag queens are in costume and it's theatrics. They're reading a story in character. Right. And my argument right back is like, drag shows have a set standard of what they are. It is, they walk around, they take tips from the audience. It is comparable to go-go dancing. If we said go-go dancing for kids, parents would be like, excuse me? We can put a poll in the room too, and they can do that because the drag queens have been doing the same kinds of dancing.
They've done some of that.
Yeah, and parents would probably be like, hey, wait a minute, but the left is jumping over themselves to defend this because it's tribal issues.
Right.
But we'll leave it there. If you haven't already, smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. We're going to have that members only show up at about 11 p.m. You're not going to want to miss it because we are going, it's uncensored. Not family friendly. We record that right now after the show, and then it goes up at 11. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL basically everywhere. You can follow me at Timcast. Seth, do you want to shout anything out?
You can follow the Babylon Bee, not on Twitter right now. We're locked out, but hopefully if we get back, you can follow us there. But we're still on Facebook, Instagram, babylonbee.com, our YouTube channel as well. Like and subscribe there.
Right on. I just saw the video Seamus did with the Babylon Bee. It was hilarious.
Oh, the one from the Rod Butch's debate tactics. Yeah, that one was hilarious. Thank you. I can only say that because I can't take credit for all the jokes. So yeah, I'm Seamus Coughlin. I have a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes. I create political cartoons, and we're going to be releasing one tomorrow. I think you guys will enjoy. If you want to go over to freedomtunes.com for $5 a month, you can become a member, and you'll be supporting independent content and getting an extra cartoon every week.
Guys, I want to remind you about festival.minds.com because I'm going to be there speaking with Blair White, Bill Ottman. We're going to be talking about internet, the future of internet, the technology of internet, social media censorship, all the above. It's going to be hot. So check it out, festival.minds.com. Get a ticket there. It's going to be in New York City at the Beacon Theater, and it's this Saturday, June 26th. Looking forward to seeing you.
Did you mention the free tickets?
No. You can also get free tickets. A lot of people maybe if you're financially pinched or if you just want some free ticks, go to festival.minds.com and you can sign up for the free ticket form.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to the Minds Festival because I've never been to New York City. So this is going to be super fun. I'm excited. Seth's going to be joining us there. Blair White's going to be there. Tulsi Gabbard's going to be there. It's going to be a really great time. I'm super stoked about it. We're just going to drive up. It's going to be super rad. You guys can follow me on Twitter and minds.com at sourpatchlids as well as sourpatchlids.me.
We will see you all at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.